They dragged her to the tomb in chains. 23 girls before her went in. None came out. The council called it sacrifice. Her pack called it mercy. But when they threw Liora Hale into that darkness, they made one fatal mistake. They assumed she'd die quietly. If you want to know how the girl they sent to the grave became the queen who buried them all, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop your city in the comments. Let's see where this story reaches tonight. The iron collar bit into Leora's neck as they shoved her forward through the muddy street. Rain hammered down on Greyvale like punishment, turning the packed earth into slick rivers of filth that splattered her bare feet with every stumbling step. Behind her, the crowd followed, not to mourn, but to witness. "Keep moving, defect." The guard's voice was flat, bored. He'd done this before. Probably would again. Liora didn't answer. Speech had stopped mattering 3 days ago when Alpha Tauren signed the decree. Before that, it had stopped mattering when she turned 16 without a shift. And before that, well, maybe it had never mattered at all. The Greyvale pack lined the narrow street despite the downpour, faces blurred behind sheets of rain but eyes sharp and gleaming. Some watched with pity, most with relief, a few with something uglier. "Finally getting rid of the dead weight," someone muttered. "Took long enough. My cousin got sent last spring. At least she had a wolf. This one's just broken." Liora kept her gaze on the mud ahead. Let them talk. Let them celebrate. In a few hours, none of it would matter anyway. The procession wound through the lower district where the Omega quarters hunched against the eastern wall like beaten dogs. Liora had spent 6 years in those quarters after her parents died. 6 years of backbreaking labor, thin soup, and the kind of casual cruelty that didn't even recognize itself as cruel. Just the natural order, just how things were. She could still remember the day they told her. She'd been 12, sitting in the cramped room she shared with 4 other orphaned girls, when the pack administrator came with the news. Her parents, low-ranking hunters, barely worth mentioning, had been killed on a routine patrol. Rogue attack. 3 others died too. The pack mourned for exactly 1 evening, then moved on. "They left debts," the administrator had said, not unkindly, just matter of fact. 17 silver marks to the healer, 8 to the provisioner. Your mother borrowed against future earnings. Your father owed the weapons master for a replacement blade. Liora had stared at him, 12 years old and trying to understand. "But they're dead." "Yes, which means the debt passes to you." "I don't have any money." "No." He'd pulled out a contract, already written up. "But you have time and labor. Alpha Tauren has approved your sale to cover the debt. Merchant Garen has agreed to take your contract. You'll work in his warehouse. Good, honest work. Could be worse." It had been worse. Garen ran a shipping operation out of a warehouse on the eastern docks. He moved grain mostly, but also leather goods, ore from the northern mines, whatever needed transporting. The work was brutal, loading crates that weighed more than she did, hauling sacks until her shoulders screamed, cleaning the warehouse floors on her hands and knees when the day's shipments finally ended. She'd lasted 3 years. 3 years of waking before dawn, working until dark, collapsing onto a thin pallet in the corner of the storage room they let her sleep in. 3 years of watching her hands crack and bleed, her back develop a permanent ache, her childhood disappear into the gap between sunrise and sunset. Garen hadn't been cruel exactly, just indifferent. She was a tool he'd purchased. Tools didn't need kindness, they needed to function. When she turned 15 and still showed no signs of her wolf emerging, he'd sold her contract to the tannery. "Nothing personal," he'd said, counting the silver marks. "But I need workers who can shift. Pull double loads. You're too slow, girl, too weak. Can't afford dead weight." The tannery had been worse. The stench alone, blood and chemicals and rot, had made her gag for the first month. But you got used to it. You got used to everything, eventually. The caustic solutions that ate through gloves and skin alike. The hides that came in still dripping. The foreman who liked to grab the younger girls when he thought no one was watching. Liora learned to be invisible there. Learned to work fast and keep her head down and never, ever give anyone a reason to notice her. 4 years she survived like that. 4 years of scraping by on the absolute edge of existence. Then 2 months ago, the council came. She'd been scraping a hide, mindless, repetitive work, when the tannery owner called her to his office. Two council representatives stood there in their formal robes, one holding a ledger, the other a sealed scroll. Liora Hale, age 18, no wolf manifestation, no mate bond potential. The one with the ledger barely looked at her, reading as though she was inventory. By decree of the Werewolf Council of the Northern Territories, you are conscripted for the cleansing ritual. The words hadn't made sense at first. She'd heard of the ritual, of course. Everyone had. But it was something that happened to other people. Distant, abstract. When? She'd managed to ask. 2 months. You'll be held in the Omega quarters until the appointed date. Your contract is hereby dissolved. He'd stamped something in the ledger. Any questions? About 1,000. She'd asked none of them. The tannery owner had actually smiled as they led her out. Finally, was wondering when you'd take her. The Omega quarters had been different the second time around. She wasn't a child anymore, and the other residents could smell the death sentence on her. They avoided her, whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. Some prayed for her, which was almost worse than the ones who celebrated. It's an honor, one of the older women had told her, trying to be kind. To be chosen. To serve the pack one final time. Liora had nodded and said nothing. What was there to say? She'd spent those 2 months in a strange limbo. They fed her better than she'd eaten in years. The ritual apparently required the sacrifice to be healthy. They gave her a room to herself, small but private. They even let her sleep as late as she wanted. It was the kindest they'd been to her since her parents died. It was also the clearest sign that she was already dead. The day before the ritual, they'd brought her the white dress. Simple, undyed linen. Ceremonial. The woman who delivered it had tears in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she'd whispered. "I'm so sorry." Liora had taken the dress and thanked her, politely. Because what else do you do? That night, she'd lain awake in her small room and thought about running. Just leaving. Disappearing into the wilderness and taking her chances with rogues and wild animals and whatever else lurked out there. But she didn't. Not because she was brave, not because she accepted her fate, but because she was tired. Bone deep, soul tired. Tired of running. Tired of fighting. Tired of surviving just to wake up and survive another day. Maybe the tomb would be different. Maybe it would finally be over. She'd almost believed it. Now, being dragged through the rain toward her execution, Liora felt that familiar numbness settling over her like a blanket. This was happening. There was no escape, no last-minute rescue, no miracle, just the rain and the mud and the crowd that couldn't wait to watch her disappear. The crowd thickened as they reached the main square. The rain had driven most inside, but the execution, no, the ritual, demanded witnesses. Pack law. Someone had strung up sad banners that hung limp and dripping from the eaves of the meeting hall. The council had gathered on the covered platform, 7 figures in ceremonial robes that probably cost more than Liora had earned in her entire life. Alpha Tauren stood at the center, broad-shouldered and granite-faced. 52 years old, graying at the temples but still powerful. He'd ruled Greyvale for 30 years with the kind of iron discipline that kept the pack strong and the weak invisible. His word was law. His decisions were final. His daughter Celine stood beside him, golden and perfect in every way Liora wasn't. 20 years old, already marked as the next alpha. Her wolf so powerful she'd made her first shift at 13. Liora had seen her once from a distance, all flowing blonde hair and easy grace, moving through the pack like she owned the air itself. Everything Liora wasn't. Everything Liora would never be. Halt! The guards yanked her to a stop at the base of the platform. Rain streamed down her face, plastering her dark hair to her skull. The thin dress they'd given her, the ritual required white, of course, because symbolism mattered more than warmth, clung to her skin like a burial shroud. Alpha Tauren's voice carried over the drumming rain, deep and formal. Liora Hale, you stand before this council having failed to manifest your wolf, having proven unable to contribute to the strength and continuation of this pack. The bloodline ends with you. Liora said nothing. What was there to say? By ancient law and sacred duty, you are chosen to serve in the cleansing ritual. Your sacrifice will renew our lands and honor your family's name. He paused, and for just a moment, something that might have been regret flickered across his face. Your parents served this pack with loyalty. You will do the same in the only way you can. Do you accept this charge? The script called for her to say yes. to bow her head and accept her fate with dignity, to make it easy for them. Every girl before her had done it. 23 times the sacrifice had bowed her head and accepted and gone quietly. Liora looked up at the alpha through the rain, met his eyes directly, something she hadn't dared in years. "Does it matter if I don't?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Celine's perfect face twisted with disgust. One of the council members, an old man with white hair, actually gasped. Whispers spread like fire. Did she just? Disrespectful. No wonder she never shifted. Alpha Taurin's expression hardened into stone. No, it doesn't. Then why ask? For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The rain hammered down. Thunder rolled somewhere distant. Alpha Taurin stared at her, and Liora stared back, and something passed between them that wasn't quite understanding, but wasn't quite contempt either. Then Taurin gestured sharply. "Take her!" The guards dragged her up the platform steps. The head priestess waited there, ancient and withered, a woman so old she might have been performing this ritual for decades. She wore robes of deep crimson, and her hands, gnarled with age, held a ceremonial blade that gleamed despite the gloom. She reached for Liora's wrist with fingers like bird claws. "The blood binds the offering," the priestess intoned, her voice thin but carrying. "The sacrifice sanctifies the land. The broken return to the earth, and from their ending comes our renewal. Let the girl step forward and accept her." "I'm not broken." The words came out before Liora could stop them. Quiet, but clear. The priestess froze mid-reach. "What did you say?" Liora met her milky gaze. Those eyes had probably seen every sacrifice, every girl who'd stood where Liora stood now, every quiet acceptance. "I said I'm not broken. Just because I don't have a wolf doesn't mean I'm defective. Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's you. Maybe the bloodlines are failing because you keep throwing away anyone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of worthy." The slap cracked across her face hard enough to snap her head sideways. Pain exploded through her cheek, white-hot and stunning. Blood filled her mouth. She'd bitten her tongue. "Blasphemous little wretch!" The priestess's voice shook with fury. "You dare speak such filth? You dare question the old ways, the sacred traditions? Your parents would die of shame if they—" "My parents are already dead," Liora spat blood onto the platform. "And they died for a pack that couldn't wait to sell their daughter to pay debts they incurred serving you, so don't talk to me about honor." The priestess raised her hand to strike again, but Alpha Taurin's command cut through the chaos like a blade. "Enough!" The old woman froze. "This changes nothing," Taurin said, his voice cold. "The girl's fear makes her lash out. Understandable, irrelevant. Proceed with the ritual." The priestess grabbed Liora's wrist with surprising strength and drew the blade across her palm in one quick motion. Pain bit deep. Blood welled up, shockingly red against pale skin, and the old woman pressed Liora's bleeding hand against a silver bowl engraved with more of those ancient symbols. "From blood comes binding," the priestess chanted. "From binding comes sacrifice. From sacrifice comes renewal." The blood dripped into the bowl, each drop making a soft plink sound that somehow carried over the rain. Liora watched it fall and felt nothing. No fear, no anger, just a distant curiosity about how much blood they'd take before they were satisfied. The ritual took 17 minutes. 17 minutes of chanting in that dead language, of her blood slowly filling the bowl, of symbolic gestures that would have been laughable if they weren't signing her death warrant. The council joined in the chanting. The crowd took up the response. Even the rain seemed to fall in rhythm with the words. When the bowl was nearly full, the priestess finally released her wrist. Liora's hand throbbed, blood still seeping from the cut. The old woman held the bowl aloft, crimson liquid sloshing. "It is done. The offering is sealed. Let her be taken to the Tomb of Shadows, where she will face the judgment of the old powers and pay the price for her bloodline's failure. Let her death bring life to the pack. Let her ending bring our beginning." The crowd erupted in ritual phrases. Prayers for the pack's renewal. Thanks for her sacrifice. Hollow words that meant nothing and everything. May the spirits receive her. May the land be renewed. May her sacrifice honor the fallen. They hauled her back down the steps and loaded her into a covered wagon that waited in the square. Iron bars caged the back. A true prisoner's transport. They shoved her inside and locked the gate. Through the gaps between the bars, Liora watched Greyvale disappear into sheets of rain. She didn't cry. Tears were another luxury she'd abandoned years ago. Crying didn't change anything, didn't stop the pain or slow the inevitable. It just made you weak, and weakness was dangerous. The wagon lurched into motion. 4 guards rode alongside, hooded against the weather, silent as executioners. Inside the cage, Liora braced herself against the bars as the wheels bounced over ruts and stones. The journey north took 3 hours over roads that disintegrated into mud tracks as they climbed into the foothills. The rain continued, relentless, turning the world into variations of gray. Through the bars, Liora watched the landscape change. The packlands fell away behind them. The forest grew darker, older. The trees twisted and strange. They passed abandoned homesteads, collapsed barns, fields long gone to seed. This was the borderland, the edge of pack territory where nobody lived anymore. Nobody living, anyway. The burial ground sprawled across a hillside that had probably been beautiful once. Now it was just desolate. Ancient stones jutted from the earth like broken teeth, marking graves so old the names had worn away to nothing. Some had toppled, others leaned at drunken angles. A few still stood straight, defiant against time. At the center stood the tomb. It was massive, easily 40 feet tall, half buried in the hillside, built from stones so huge that moving them must have required magic or miracles, or both. Moss covered everything. Vines thick as a man's arm snaked up the walls and across the ancient roof, and carved into every visible surface were symbols, twisting, eye-burning symbols that seemed to writhe when Liora looked at them too long. The door was solid black iron, 12 feet tall and 6 wide, inscribed with wards that still glowed faintly red despite centuries of weather. Even from a distance, power radiated from it like heat from a fire. Old power. Dangerous power. The kind of power you didn't touch unless you had no choice. The wagon stopped. The rain had finally stopped too, leaving the world dripping and gray and utterly silent. No birds sang here. No insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to avoid this place. Out. Liora climbed from the wagon on shaking legs. Her sliced palm throbbed with every heartbeat. The thin white dress, soaked through, clung to her like a second skin. She was freezing, exhausted, bleeding, and somehow still alive. One of the guards, younger than the others, barely 20 with scared eyes, unlocked the collar around her neck. His hands trembled as he worked the mechanism. "I'm sorry," he whispered, so quiet she almost didn't hear. "For what it's worth, this isn't... I'm sorry." "It's not worth anything," Liora said. "Not cruel, just true." He flinched like she'd struck him, but said nothing else. The head guard, a grizzled man with scars crossing his face, produced an ancient key from his pack. It was black iron, like the door, covered in the same twisting symbols. He approached the tomb slowly, reverently, like a man walking to his own execution. The wards flared brighter as he inserted the key into a lock Liora hadn't noticed. Magic crackled through the air, with a smell like burned copper and ozone. The temperature dropped, not gradually, but all at once, like someone had opened a door to winter. Mechanisms groaned inside the stone, gears that shouldn't exist, working after centuries of disuse. Slowly, with a sound like the earth splitting open, the tomb door swung inward. Darkness poured out. Not the absence of light, actual darkness. Thick, viscous, rolling across the ground like smoke made solid. Where it touched, frost spread across the stone. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees in seconds. Liora's breath misted in the air. From inside came a sound, low, rhythmic, almost like breathing, but wrong. Too slow, too deep. The breathing of something that shouldn't breathe. "In you go." The head guard's voice was tight, professional, but Liora heard the fear underneath. "Walk straight forward. Don't stop. Don't turn around. Don't look at anything directly. And if you hear voices..." He swallowed hard. "Try not to listen." "What's in there?" Liora heard herself ask. "What's really in there? Not the ritual nonsense, the truth." The guard met her eyes. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said quietly, "Something they couldn't kill. Something they had to bury instead. Walk straight, girl. Don't give it a reason to notice you." "What happened to the other girls? The 23 before me?" "They fed the seal, kept it bound. That's all you need to know." "Did they die quickly?" He looked away. Does it matter? Her own words again. Liora almost laughed. No, I guess it doesn't. They gave her a push, not hard, but firm, enough to get her moving. Liora took one breath of the cold air, then stepped across the threshold into the tomb. The darkness swallowed her whole. Behind her, the door swung shut with a boom that echoed forever and then cut off all at once, like someone had severed the sound. Silence fell like a hammer. Complete. Absolute. Liora stood in perfect blackness, heart hammering against her ribs. She couldn't see her hand in front of her face. Couldn't see anything at all. Just dark, endless and smothering, pressing against her eyes like a physical thing. Her breathing sounded impossibly loud. Each exhale a thunderclap, each inhale a scream. Don't stop. Walk straight forward. She forced herself to move, one foot in front of the other. The floor was smooth stone beneath her bare feet, worn down by ancient footsteps. How many people had walked this path before it became a tomb? How many had died here before they sealed whatever lurked inside? Then, gradually, her eyes adjusted. Or maybe the darkness thinned. Either way, shapes began to emerge from the black. She stood in a corridor carved from raw stone. The walls glistened with moisture and something else, something that moved when she wasn't looking directly at it. Shadows that shouldn't exist in the dark. The ceiling arched overhead, gothic and high, too far up to see clearly. The floor was smooth, polished by time and use, and ahead, down the corridor, there was light. Faint. Sickly green, pulsing like a heartbeat. Walk straight forward. Don't stop. Liora walked. The corridor stretched on forever, sloping gradually downward, deeper into the earth, deeper into whatever hell they'd buried here. The green light grew stronger with every step, painting the walls in shades of decay and rot. She passed alcoves cut into the stone, each one filled with debris, broken pottery, rusted weapons, bones. So many bones. Some looked animal, others didn't. Liora forced herself not to look too closely, not to wonder how many of those bones belonged to the 23 girls who'd come before her. The breathing sound grew louder, definitely breathing now, deep, slow, rattling, the sound of something massive dragging air through ruined lungs, or something that didn't need to breathe but did anyway, out of habit or memory. Liora's hands trembled. She clenched them into fists, felt the sting of the ritual cut on her palm, and kept walking. One foot, then the other. Don't think, don't stop, just move. The corridor opened into a chamber. It was vast, cathedral vast. The ceiling disappeared into shadow somewhere far overhead, lost in darkness the green light couldn't reach. Pillars thick as ancient trees marched away in perfect rows, each carved with more of those eye-burning symbols that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the light. The floor was polished stone, inlaid with patterns Liora couldn't quite follow, geometric shapes that twisted in on themselves, hurting her eyes when she tried to trace them. At the far end of the chamber, perhaps 100 feet away, stood an altar of black stone. And chained to that altar was a man. No, not a man. Not anymore. Maybe once, before whatever happened here. Now he was something else. Something between. He hung suspended by silver chains that gleamed even in the sickly light, arms spread wide like a mockery of surrender, head bowed so his dark hair fell across his face. The chains wrapped around his wrists, his ankles, his throat, his waist, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all converging on the altar behind him. They glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with that green light, in rhythm with the breathing. He was massive, easily 7 feet tall, built like violence-made flesh, broad shoulders, corded muscle, skin pale as death, marked with black symbols that seemed to move across his flesh like living things, shifting and writhing beneath the surface. The breathing came from him. Liora froze at the chamber's entrance. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere to go. Behind her, the corridor. Ahead, the thing on the altar. That was it. Those were her options. Don't give it a reason to notice you. Too late for that. The moment she'd entered, she'd been noticed. She could feel it, a pressure against her mind like someone standing too close. She took a step forward. The breathing hitched. Another step. Her bare feet made no sound on the polished stone, but somehow he heard anyway. Or felt. Or knew. The chained man's head lifted slowly, like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Leora's heart stopped. His eyes opened, and they were silver, pure, molten silver, glowing in the dark like twin moons. They fixed on her with an intensity that made her bones ache, made her blood sing, made every hair on her body stand straight. For a long moment, he just stared. Then he spoke, and his voice was broken glass and distant thunder, echoing through the chamber and through her chest and through places inside her she hadn't known existed. Impossible. Leora's mouth was dry. She forced words out anyway. What are you? The silver eyes burned brighter. A smile, sharp and terrible, pulled at his lips. What am I? He laughed, and it was an awful sound, full of rage and grief, and something else she couldn't name. I am the reason this tomb exists. The power they tried to bury. The king they couldn't kill. The chains rattled as he shifted, testing them like he'd tested them 1,000 times before. And you're the fool they sent to die. I know that part already, Liora managed. Her voice sounded small in the vast chamber. Do you? He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. 23 before you. 23 sacrifices to feed the seal, to keep me bound, to prevent the prophecy from coming true. He paused, those silver eyes tracking every movement she made. All of them screamed, begged, broke. Most didn't even make it to the chamber. The darkness took them in the corridor. And you're just standing there. Liora didn't know what else to do. Running wouldn't help. Screaming wouldn't either. Begging, she'd learned that years ago. So she stood her ground and met those terrible silver eyes and waited for whatever came next. The chained man laughed again, quieter this time, almost sad. They sent you here to die, little wolf. The ritual that brought you here was designed to drain your life force, to feed the chains that bind me. You have maybe an hour before your heart stops. Maybe less. He gestured at the altar behind him with one chained hand. There's a knife. On the altar. If you're smart, you'll use it. Quick death beats slow, trust me on that. Liora looked past him to the altar. Sure enough, a silver blade lay there, gleaming against the black stone. Ceremonial, probably. Ancient. Sharp enough to end things quickly if she was brave enough. She looked back at the chained man. Is there another option? His eyes widened, just a fraction. What? I asked if there's another option, besides dying quick or dying slow. She took another step forward, closer to the pillars, closer to him. Because I'm really tired of doing what people expect me to. Silence stretched between them. The green light pulsed, the chains hummed with power. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped with metronomic precision. You're serious, he said finally. Not a question, an observation. 23 girls before me, Liora said, moving between the pillars now, walking toward the altar. 23 times this ritual worked exactly how they wanted. 23 times someone came in here and died and fed whatever magic keeps you chained. She stopped about 10 feet from him, close enough to see the details now. The symbols moving under his skin, the silver chains cutting into his flesh, the raw power contained in those bonds. I don't know who you are. Don't know what you did or why they buried you. Don't particularly care. Imam Bami. Then what do you care about? His voice was softer now, curious. Liora met his eyes. I care that they threw me away. That they decided I was worthless because I don't fit their definition of valuable. That they're so sure this will work the way it always has. She took another step. So if dying is what they sent me here to do, she reached the base of the altar and looked up at him. Then maybe I should do something else. For the first time since she'd entered the tomb, the chained man smiled. It was sharp and dangerous and hungry, and it transformed his face from terrible to terrifying. Oh, he said softly, I like you. The silver chains erupted with light. It was blinding, searing. Liora threw up her hands, but the light burned through her eyelids, through her bones, through everything. Power surged through the chamber like a shockwave. The pillars cracked. The floor buckled. The green light flared so bright it turned white, then blue, then something beyond color, and then it stopped. Liora blinked spots from her vision. When her eyes cleared, the chained man was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Well, he said, That's new. What just happened? You triggered something, a response in the seal. He tested the chains again. They held, but barely. She could see strain in the links now, hairline fractures spreading through the silver. The ritual was designed to drain you, but you didn't accept it, didn't submit. And when you rejected your fate, he smiled again. You rejected the seal too. Is that good or bad? For me? Excellent. For you? He paused. Probably fatal. The seal doesn't like being rejected. It's going to try to kill you faster now, maybe 5 minutes instead of an hour. Liora felt it then, a pulling sensation, like something had hooked into her chest and was slowly drawing out everything vital, her life, her strength, the warmth in her blood. 5 minutes, she repeated, if you're lucky. She looked at the knife on the altar again, quick death, painless, probably. Better than being drained dry by ancient magic. Then she looked at the chains, at the fractures spreading through them. What happens if I break the seal completely? The chained man went very still. What? You heard me. What happens if the seal breaks? If you get free? Those silver eyes burned into her. Why would you want that? Because it would really piss them off. Liora reached for the nearest chain. It was cold, so cold it burned, but she grabbed it anyway. And right now, that sounds perfect. Wait! She yanked. The chain shattered. Power exploded outward like a bomb going off. Liora flew backward, hit a pillar hard enough to crack stone, and slid to the floor gasping. Pain lit up her back, her shoulders, her skull. The chamber shook. Dust rained from the ceiling. The green light flickered and died, plunging everything into darkness. Then new light bloomed. Silver light, bright as the moon, coming from him. The chained man's eyes blazed. The symbols on his skin moved faster, crawling and twisting. Another chain shattered, then another. The sound was like bells breaking, like ice cracking, like the world splitting. You foolish, magnificent creature, he said, and his voice echoed with power. Do you have any idea what you've done? Liora pushed herself upright. Blood ran down the back of her head. Her vision swam, but she smiled anyway. Absolutely none, but I'm about to find out. The last chain broke. And Kyle Draven, the Alpha King who'd been buried alive 3 centuries ago, who'd been sealed and bound and forgotten, stepped free from the altar for the first time in 300 years. The tomb began to collapse around them. The ceiling came down in chunks the size of coffins. Liora threw herself sideways as a stone block crashed where she'd been standing, shattering into fragments that peppered her arms and face. Dust choked the air. The silver light blazing from Kyle illuminated chaos, pillars cracking like bones, the floor splitting into jagged crevasses, the ancient walls buckling inward. Move! His voice cut through the destruction. She scrambled to her feet, stumbled, caught herself. Her head throbbed where she'd hit the pillar. Blood stuck her hair to her skull. But she ran anyway because staying still meant being buried alive. Kyle was already moving toward the corridor, faster than anything his size should move. The chains that had bound him for 3 centuries lay scattered across the floor in pieces, still glowing faintly. He didn't look back to see if she followed. Liora followed anyway. The corridor was collapsing too. The smooth walls she'd walked past 20 minutes ago were crumbling, raining debris. The green light had died completely. Only Kyle's silver glow showed the way, and even that flickered as chunks of ceiling crashed down around them. Faster, he shouted. I'm trying! A section of wall exploded inward. Liora dove forward, felt stone graze her shoulder hard enough to tear skin. She hit the ground rolling, came up running. Her bare feet slipped on loose rubble. She went down again, palms scraping across broken stone. Kale's hand closed around her arm and hauled her upright without slowing. His grip was iron. He dragged her forward as the corridor disintegrated behind them, ahead of them, around them. The tomb door loomed out of the dust. Still sealed, still warded. Kale didn't slow down. He hit it full force with his shoulder, and the ancient iron exploded outward like it was made of paper. They tumbled out into gray daylight and cold air, and Liora had never been so grateful to see the sky. She sucked in lungfuls of clean air, coughing out dust, blinking grit from her eyes. Behind them, the tomb collapsed completely. The sound was enormous, stone grinding against stone, supports giving way. The entire structure folding in on itself like a dying star. Dust billowed out in a massive cloud that rolled across the burial ground. Then silence. Liora lay on her back on cold stone, staring up at gray clouds, breathing hard. Every part of her hurt, her head, her back, her shoulder, her hands. But she was alive. Somehow, impossibly, she was alive.
Well, Kale's voice came from somewhere nearby. That was dramatic. Liora turned her head. He stood about 10 feet away, looking down at the ruins of his prison. Expression unreadable. The silver light had faded from his eyes, leaving them a pale gray that was almost normal. Almost. He was still massive, still covered in those moving symbols, still radiating power that made the air around him shimmer. But he looked tired, like breaking free had cost him more than he wanted to admit.
"You're welcome," Liora said. He glanced at her. "For what?" "Freeing you." "I didn't ask you to." "You didn't stop me either." Hale studied her for a long moment. Then he walked over and offered his hand. Liora took it. He pulled her to her feet with no apparent effort, and she realized with a jolt that she barely came up to his chest. "What's your name?" he asked. "Liora Hale." "Liora." He tested it like a foreign word. "Do you know what you've done, Liora Hale? Broken a very old seal and probably signed my own death warrant?" "Among other things." He released her hand and turned in a slow circle, taking in the burial ground, the distant tree line, the gray sky. "How long was I sealed?" "I don't know. A long time. They don't teach history about whatever you are." 300 years, give or take." He breathed deep, like he was tasting the air. "The world smells different, smaller." Liora didn't know what to say to that. She looked down at herself instead. The white dress was filthy, torn, blood-stained. Her feet were cut and bleeding. Her hands shook with exhaustion and shock. And something else. Something that pulsed under her skin like a second heartbeat. "What's happening to me?" she asked quietly. Kale looked at her. Really looked, with an intensity that made her want to step back. "You broke the seal. The magic had to go somewhere. Some of it went into freeing me. The rest," he gestured vaguely, "went into you." "What does that mean?" "It means you're not powerless anymore." He tilted his head. "Can you feel it? The energy?" She could. Like electricity in her veins, like fire just beneath her skin, like something sleeping inside her had opened one eye and was deciding whether to wake up. "I don't have a wolf," she said. "Never did. That's why they—" "You have one." His voice was flat, certain. "Suppressed, sealed, but definitely there. I can smell it on you." Liora stared at him. "That's not possible. Neither is breaking a 300-year-old seal with your bare hands. Yet here we are." He started walking toward the tree line. "Come on." "Where are we going?" "Away from here. The collapse will have been felt for miles. Your pack will send people to investigate, probably already on their way." "They're not my pack." Kale glanced back. "No, I suppose they're not." They walked. Leora's feet screamed with every step, but she didn't complain. Complaining wouldn't help. Behind them, dust still rose from the ruined tomb. Ahead the forest waited, dark and wild and probably full of things that wanted to kill them. Still better odds than staying. The forest swallowed them within minutes. Ancient trees pressed close, their branches forming a canopy so thick it turned afternoon into twilight. The undergrowth grabbed at Leora's torn dress. Thorns caught her skin. She ignored it all and kept moving. "How far can you walk?" Kale asked without turning around. "As far as I need to." "That's not an answer." "It's the best one you're getting." He made a sound that might have been amusement, might have been approval, hard to tell. They'd made it maybe half a mile when Kyle stopped abruptly. "Someone's coming," he said. 3 of them, armed. "How do you—" "I can hear their heartbeats, smell their fear." He turned to face back the way they'd come. "Hide." "What are you going to do?" "Convince them to leave." "By—" "Hide, Liora." The command in his voice made her move without thinking. She ducked behind a massive oak and pressed herself against the bark, trying to quiet her breathing. 30 seconds later, 3 wolves burst through the undergrowth. They were big, battle-trained. Their fur was dark gray, almost black, and they moved with coordinated precision. Pack hunters. Probably elite guard sent to check on the ritual. They saw Kyle and stopped dead. For a moment, nobody moved. The wolves stared at him. He stared back. The forest held its breath. Then the largest wolf, probably the leader, shifted. The transformation was fast, brutal, bones cracking and reforming until a man stood where the wolf had been. He was huge, scarred, naked except for the weapons harness across his chest. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. Kyle smiled. It wasn't friendly. "Someone who was buried before your great-grandfather was born. Who are you?" "Captain Marcus of Greyvale Pack. You're trespassing on—" "I'm standing in a forest. Forests don't belong to anyone. This territory is claimed by Alpha Tauren under the Northern Territories Accord. If you don't have—" "I don't care." Kale's voice went cold. "Leave. Now. While you still can." Marcus's hand went to the blade on his harness. The other two wolves growled, low and threatening. They began to circle, flanking positions, cutting off escape routes. "The tomb collapsed," Marcus said slowly. "Where's the girl?" "The sacrifice?" "Gone." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." Marcus studied Kyle with the eyes of a man who'd seen combat and knew how to assess threats. Whatever he saw made him pale slightly, but he didn't back down. Good soldier, loyal, doomed. "You're not human," Marcus said slowly, very observant. "The seals, the tomb." His eyes widened. "You were what they buried, what they've been feeding for." Kale moved. One moment he was standing still. The next he had Marcus by the throat, lifted off the ground, feet dangling. The other two wolves lunged, but Kyle backhanded one into a tree hard enough to crack bark. The impact echoed through the forest. The wolf hit the ground and didn't get up. The second got a kick that sent it flying 20 feet into a thorn bush where it lay whimpering. "I'm going to say this once," Kale said quietly, his voice deadly calm. "Go back to your pack. Tell them the ritual failed. Tell them the tomb is gone. Tell them if anyone comes looking for the girl, I'll kill them." He met Marcus's bulging eyes. "Do you understand?" Marcus managed a strangled nod, face turning purple. Kale dropped him. The captain hit the ground gasping, hand at his throat, coughing. The other two wolves picked themselves up, limping, whimpering, blood matting their fur. "Run," Kale said. They ran. Marcus grabbed his wolves and they vanished into the forest like ghosts, the sound of their retreat fading quickly. Silence returned. Kale stood there watching until even their scent dissipated. Liora stepped out from behind the oak, heart pounding. "You could have killed them." "Yes." "Why didn't you?" "Because then their pack sends more, and more, and eventually I'd have to kill them all, which seems excessive." He looked at her, expression unreadable. "Also, you're bleeding." She was. The cut on her shoulder had reopened during the run, blood soaked through the tattered dress, warm and sticky. "I'm fine." "You're not." He walked over, peeled back the torn fabric to examine the wound. His hands were surprisingly gentle. "This needs cleaning or it'll infect. There's a stream about a mile north. Can you walk?" "Do I have a choice?" "Not really." They walked. The forest grew darker as they moved deeper. Ancient trees blocked out most of the gray daylight, leaving everything in perpetual twilight. Strange sounds echoed through the woods, calls and cries of things Liora couldn't identify. Her feet went numb after a while, which was almost a blessing. She stumbled frequently. Kyle didn't help, but he slowed his pace to match hers. "Why did you help me?" she asked after a long silence. "Back there, with those wolves. You could have left me, run on your own. You'd move faster without me." "I didn't help you. I helped myself." "That doesn't make sense, doesn't it?" He pushed aside a low-hanging branch and held it for her. "You're useful to me, Liora. More useful alive than dead." "How?" He was quiet for a moment. The only sound was their footsteps on the forest floor, the rustle of leaves overhead. "The seal that bound me was tied to bloodlines, specifically to the bloodline that imprisoned me, the royal line of the Northern Territories. You carry that blood." Liora stopped walking. "That's impossible. I'm nobody. My parents were low-ranking hunters, orphans themselves. There's no royal blood in—" "There is." He looked back at her, those pale gray eyes seeing through her. Diluted, distant.
Probably so far removed you'd never know without magical testing, but it's present. That's why the ritual chose you. That's why breaking the seal didn't kill you outright. That's why... He paused. That's why you're my mate. The words hung in the air like smoke. Your what? Mate. The bond formed when you touched the chains, when your blood mixed with the seal magic. He said it casually, like he was discussing the weather. It's permanent, non-negotiable. Unfortunate timing, really. Liora felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. No, that's not... I didn't agree to... Neither did I. But here we are. He started walking again. The bond will strengthen. You'll feel it more as time passes. Might want to prepare yourself. She stared at his back, fury rising through the shock. You can't just... I'm not your mate. I'm not anyone's mate. I don't even know you. All irrelevant. The bond exists. Fighting it will only make it worse. I don't care. I didn't break you out so you could claim me like property.
Kale stopped, turned. His gray eyes were hard. I claimed nothing. The magic chose. I'm simply stating facts. You want to rage about it? Fine. Rage. But do it while walking, because those guards are heading back to their pack right now, and within the hour, every warrior in Greyvale will be hunting us. Let them come. You'll die. Maybe I don't care. Then why did you fight so hard to live? His voice cut through her anger like a blade. Why reject the ritual? Why break the seal? Why run when the tomb collapsed? If you wanted to die, you had plenty of opportunities. Liora opened her mouth, closed it, because he was right, and she hated that he was right. She swallowed hard. I wanted it to be my choice, not theirs. Everything in my life has been decided for me. Where I work, how I live, when I die. For once, I wanted it to be mine. Something in his expression softened, barely. I understand that better than you know. They stared at each other. The forest creaked around them. Somewhere distant, a bird called, harsh and lonely. The stream is close, Kyle said finally. Let's clean your wounds. Then we'll figure out what happens next. The stream was cold and clear, running over smooth stones worn round by centuries of water. Kyle made her sit on a boulder while he used strips torn from his own tattered clothing to clean the cut on her shoulder. The water stung like fire. She bit her lip to keep from making noise. You're tougher than you look, he said, working the dried blood away from the wound. Had practice. How long were they using you before the ritual? 6 years in servitude, sold to cover my parents' debt when I was 12. Does it matter? It matters. He wrapped the wound with surprising skill, his large hands deft and careful. You survived 6 years of slavery and they still thought you were weak. Blind fools. Liora looked down at her ruined hands, calloused, scarred, the hands of someone who'd worked every day of their life. Maybe they were right. I never shifted, never showed any power, just existed. You broke a seal that held me for 3 centuries. I'd say that's fairly powerful. That was desperation, not strength. Desperation is strength. He finished bandaging and sat back, studying her face. The strongest people I've known were desperate ones. The ones who had nothing left to lose. They're dangerous because they'll do what others won't. They'll burn the world down before they let it break them. Is that supposed to be inspiring? It's supposed to be true. His eyes held hers. You're afraid. Of course I'm afraid. I just destroyed a sacred tomb, freed an ancient prisoner, and apparently bonded myself to him magically. My pack wants me dead. The council will want answers, and I have no idea what I'm doing or where I'm going or... Breathe. She realized she was hyperventilating, forced herself to slow down. In, out, in, out. Better, Kale said. Here's what we're going to do. We head east, out of Greyvale territory. There are wild lands beyond the pack borders. Unclaimed, dangerous, but safer than staying here. We'll find shelter, give you time to recover. Then what? Then you learn to use what's inside you, the power you absorbed, the wolf they suppressed. I told you, I don't have a... You do. His voice was hard, certain. I can feel it, right now, sleeping, waiting. Someone sealed it deliberately, probably when you were very young, before you'd remember.
Leora's mind spun. Why would anyone do that? To hide you, protect you, or control you. He stood, offering his hand to help her up. We'll figure out which, but first we survive. Come on. We have a lot of ground to cover before dark. They traveled through the afternoon and into evening. Kyle moved like he'd been born in the forest, silent and sure-footed despite his size. Liora stumbled along behind, exhausted beyond measure but too afraid to stop. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow could be a pursuer. The terrain grew rougher as they went. Hills rose and fell. The stream they'd been following split into smaller tributaries, then disappeared underground. Kyle chose paths that seemed random, but Liora noticed he always picked the hardest routes. Rocky ground that wouldn't hold tracks, dense undergrowth that would slow pursuers. You've done this before, she said. Running. Yes. From who? Everyone. He pushed through a thicket of thorns, holding the branches aside for her. I spent 20 years fighting a war before they buried me. You learn to move fast, move quiet, trust nothing. What was the war about? Power, territory, the usual things people kill each other over. His voice went distant. The other packs decided my bloodline was too strong, too dangerous. They called us tyrants, said we were planning to conquer the northern territories. Maybe we were. Maybe we just wanted to survive. What happened? We lost. Obviously. He glanced back at her. They killed my pack, every last one, hunted us through these very forests. I was the last. They couldn't kill me. I was too strong, too fast. So they buried me instead. Thought time would do what they couldn't. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was 300 years ago. Everyone I knew is dust. The packs that imprisoned me are probably gone too, replaced by new names and new faces fighting the same old wars. He stopped walking. That's the real tragedy. Nothing changes. People are still killing each other over the same scraps of land and power. Liora wanted to argue but couldn't. He was right. Her pack had thrown her away for the crime of being different, had fed 23 other girls to this tomb for the same reason. How was that different from his war? By the time night fell, they'd crossed into the wild lands. The trees changed, older, wilder, twisted into shapes that looked almost deliberate, faces in the bark, branches that reached like fingers. The undergrowth thickened into walls of thorns and brambles. Predators use the main trails, Kyle explained, cutting through a section of dense brush with his bare hands. We make our own path, slower but safer. What kind of predators? The kind that make wolves look friendly, cave bears, shadow cats, things that don't have names anymore because everyone who saw them died. He paused. Stay close. They found a cave as the last light faded, not deep but sheltered, hidden behind a curtain of vines and fallen logs. Kale checked it thoroughly before letting her enter, disappearing into the darkness for several minutes before returning. It's clear. No bears, no cats, no recent tracks. Liora collapsed the moment she was inside. Every muscle screamed. Her feet were hamburger, torn and bleeding. The bandage on her shoulder had soaked through with blood again. She was so tired she could barely think. Sleep, Kyle said, settling near the entrance. I'll keep watch. You need rest too. I've been resting for 300 years. I'm fine. That's not how it works. Close enough. He positioned himself where he could see outside, his large frame blocking most of the entrance. Sleep, Liora. We have a hard day tomorrow. She wanted to argue, but exhaustion dragged her under like a riptide. The last thing she remembered was Kyle sitting at the cave entrance, silhouetted against the fading light, looking out at the wild lands like a king surveying his domain. When she woke, it was late afternoon. The cave was cooler. Shadows had shifted, and Kyle was gone. Panic spiked through her. She sat up too fast, head swimming, the world tilting. Kyle? No answer. She limped to the cave entrance on feet that felt like raw meat. The forest outside was quiet. Too quiet. No birds. No insects. The kind of silence that meant predators were near. Then she heard voices. Tracks end here somewhere. She can't have gone far. Not in her condition. Spread out. Alpha wants her found before nightfall. Alive if possible. What about the male? The one Marcus saw? Alpha's orders were clear. Kill him on sight. Bring her back alive for questioning. Greyvale hunters. At least 5 of them. Maybe more.
Close. Too close. Liora pressed herself against the cave wall, trying not to breathe, heart hammering so hard she was sure they'd hear it. Where was Kyle? Had he abandoned her? Had they already caught him? Killed him? A hand clamped over her mouth from behind. She tried to scream, but Kyle's other hand held her still, pulling her back into the shadows. He materialized out of the darkness like he'd always been there, his body pressed against hers, one finger to his lips. Quiet, he breathed in her ear, barely a whisper. Don't move. Don't make a sound. The hunters passed within 20 feet of the cave, so close she could smell them, sweat and leather and steel. They talked in low voices, coordinating search patterns. Check that cave. Leora's heart stopped. Footsteps approached. A shadow fell across the entrance. She could see him now, young, maybe 25, carrying a spear, peering into the gloom. Then Kyle moved. He was out of the cave before she could blink, silent as death. There was a wet sound, a cut-off scream that died in a gurgle. Something heavy hit the ground. Tomas? One of the hunters called. Tomas, report! No response. Fan out! He's here! Sound the... Chaos erupted outside. Snarls, shouts, the sound of bodies colliding with brutal force. Liora crept to the entrance and immediately wished she hadn't. There were 6 hunters total. Kyle was killing them, not fighting them, not subduing them, killing them, systematically, brutally. No wasted movement, just clinical efficiency that was somehow more terrifying than rage would have been. One hunter shifted mid-leap, bones cracking, becoming wolf. Kyle caught him by the throat mid-transformation and threw him into a tree hard enough that the crack of breaking bones echoed through the forest. The wolf hit the ground and didn't get up, body twisted at an impossible angle. Another came from behind with a blade aimed at Kyle's spine. He spun, impossibly fast for someone his size, caught the wrist, twisted until bone snapped. The blade fell. Kyle caught it and buried it in its owner's chest in one smooth motion. A third tried to run, screaming for backup. Kale was faster. He caught the man in 3 strides, one hand closing around the back of his neck. There was a sharp twist. Silence. The last 2 dropped their weapons and ran. Kyle let them go. He stood among the bodies, breathing hard, covered in blood that wasn't his. When he looked back at the cave, his eyes were pure silver again, glowing in the growing darkness. We need to move, he said, voice flat. Now. Liora couldn't move. Couldn't process what she'd just seen. The clinical precision, the complete lack of hesitation. He'd killed 4 men in less than a minute. Liora. He walked over, careful not to touch her with his bloodied hands. I know this is difficult, but those 2 will report back within the hour. We'll have an army hunting us by morning. You killed them. They would have killed us. You didn't even try to what? Reason with them? They came here to drag you back to your pack and execute me. There's no reasoning with that. His voice gentled slightly. I'm sorry you had to see it, but this is what survival looks like out here. It's brutal, unfair, and very, very real. You need to understand that if you're going to make it. Liora looked at the bodies sprawled in the dirt, at the blood pooling in the leaves, at the man, the creature, the thing she'd freed standing there trying to explain murder like it was a math problem. What are you? She whispered. I told you. A king. Kings don't...
Yes, they do. The good ones, anyway. The ones who survive. He finally met her eyes. I was imprisoned because I refused to let my people be slaughtered. Because I fought back when the other packs decided we were too dangerous to live. They called it war, called it justice, called me a monster. Maybe they were right. He turned away, started gathering supplies from the bodies, weapons, food, a cloak, all business. Are you coming, or do you want to wait here for the next group? Liora looked back at the cave, at the forest, at the impossible choice in front of her. Stay and die. Run and maybe survive. Trust the monster or face the pack alone. Not much of a choice. She followed him into the wilderness. They walked for hours. Kyle kept them to rough terrain where tracking would be difficult. Rocky streambeds, dense thorn breaks, slopes covered in loose scree that shifted underfoot. He moved fast, relentless, barely slowing when she stumbled. The sun set. The forest grew dark. Strange sounds echoed through the trees. Still, they walked.
How much farther? Liora finally asked, voice hoarse. Until we're safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Her feet were beyond pain now, just numb. Each step was automatic. Left, right. Don't think, don't stop, just move. She was about to demand a real answer when she felt it, a pulling sensation deep in her chest, like someone had hooked into her sternum and yanked hard. Kale stopped dead. You felt that. What was it? The bond. Activating. He turned to face her in the darkness. Your body is reaching its limit. The bond is trying to stabilize you, keep you alive. I don't understand. You absorbed massive amounts of magic when you broke the seal. Your body can't process it alone. It's too much, too fast. The mate bond creates a connection, a circuit, a way to share the burden. He looked uncomfortable, which was strange on someone so confident. It will demand proximity, physical contact. Eventually, more. Leora's face burned despite the cold. More? Later. Much later, if we're lucky. Right now, you just need, he gestured vaguely, contact, skin to skin. It will help distribute the energy between us, balance the load. No. Liora, I said no. I'm not touching you because some magical bond says I have to. I'm not some thing that just does what magic tells it to. Then you'll collapse within the hour. Maybe less. The magic will tear you apart from the inside. I've seen it happen. She wanted to call him a liar, but she could feel it now, the energy under her skin growing hotter, more chaotic. Like her body was a container too small for what it held. Like she was going to burst. There has to be another way. There isn't. He held out his hand, palm up, waiting. I'm not asking for anything more than this. Just let me help. Let the bond do what it's designed to do. Liora stared at his hand. Blood still stained his fingers from the hunters, but they weren't shaking, weren't threatening, just waiting. She took it. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The chaotic energy inside her calmed, flowing from her hand into his and back again in a circuit that felt right, natural, like two halves of something becoming whole. The pain in her chest eased, her breathing steadied. The world stopped tilting. Better? Kyle asked quietly. She hated that it was. Hated that touching him felt like coming home. Yes. It'll get stronger. The bond. The more we use it, the more it solidifies. He didn't let go of her hand. I'm sorry. I know you didn't ask for this. Neither of us did. They stood there in the darkening forest, hands joined while the bond hummed between them like a living thing. Liora could feel his pulse through his palm, could sense his exhaustion despite his claims of being fine, could feel the weight of 3 centuries of imprisonment pressing down on him like a physical thing. And somewhere in the distance, wolves howled, hunting howls, coordinated, organized, close, too close. They're coming, Kyle said quietly. A lot of them, more than I can fight. Liora heard them now too, dozens of voices rising in the darkness, converging from multiple directions. A full hunting party. Maybe 2. What do we do? Kael's grip on her hand tightened. His other hand went to the blade he'd taken from the dead hunter. We run, and we don't stop until dawn. The howls grew louder, closer, cutting off escape routes. They're surrounding us, Liora whispered. I know. Can we? Run, now! They ran. Kael's hand gripped hers like iron, dragging her through darkness so complete she couldn't see her own feet. Branches whipped her face, roots caught her ankles. She went down hard, knees slamming into stone, but he hauled her up without breaking stride. Behind them, the howls multiplied. Dozens of voices, maybe more, coordinating through the forest like a living net drawing closed. How many? Liora gasped. Too many. Don't talk. Save your breath. They crashed through a thicket that tore new holes in her dress. The bond between them pulsed with each heartbeat, feeding her strength she shouldn't have, keeping her moving when her body screamed to stop. The terrain dropped suddenly. Kale didn't slow. They half ran, half slid down a steep embankment, loose earth giving way beneath them. Liora hit bottom in a tumble of limbs, tasted dirt and blood. Up, move. She moved. They splashed across a shallow stream, the icy water shocking against her ruined feet. On the far bank, Kyle pulled her behind a fallen tree and pressed a finger to his lips. Silence. Just their ragged breathing and the sound of water over stones. Then the wolves came. They poured down the embankment like a waterfall of fur and teeth, 20, 30, more than Liora could count. They hit the stream and fanned out, noses to the ground, searching. One passed within 5 feet of their hiding spot. Liora held her breath until her lungs burned. Kale's hand covered her mouth, his body pressed against hers, absolutely still. The wolf sniffed the air, turned toward them. A howl split the night from the north. The wolf's head snapped up. It answered the call and bounded away, following the pack toward the false trail. Kale waited until the sounds faded. Then he pulled her in the opposite direction, moving fast but silent now, every step placed with deliberate care. "They're tracking by scent," he whispered. "We need water, running water. It'll break the trail." They followed the stream east, staying in the shallows where the current would wash away their scent. The water was freezing. Leora's legs went numb within minutes. She didn't complain. The stream widened, deepened. Soon they were wading waist deep, the current strong enough to make walking difficult. Leora's teeth chattered. Her fingers were white where they gripped Kyle's hand. "How far?" she managed. "Until they lose us." "That's not—" "I know." They waited for what felt like hours. The stream became a river. The current grew stronger. Leora's legs gave out twice. Kyle caught her both times, kept her upright, kept her moving. Finally, the river curved around a rocky outcropping and Kyle pulled her out onto a narrow beach of smooth stones. They collapsed together, gasping. "Are they still following?" Liora asked. Kyle closed his eyes, listening. "No, we lost them, for now. For now. They'll pick up the trail eventually. We bought time, that's all." He sat up, looking around. "We need shelter. Real shelter. Somewhere defensible. There's nothing out here. There's always something. You just have to know where to look." He stood, offered his hand again. Liora took it, let him pull her up. The bond flared between them, warming her frozen skin. She was starting to hate how good it felt. They followed the river north, climbing over boulders the size of houses. The landscape was changing. Less forest, more stone. Cliffs rose on either side, squeezing the river into a narrow gorge. "There," Kyle said, pointing. Liora followed his gaze. A third of the way up the cliff face, barely visible in the darkness, was an opening. A cave. Maybe. "You're joking. Can you climb?" "I can barely walk." That wasn't the question. He was already moving, finding handholds in the rock face. Liora watched him climb 20 feet in seconds, moving with the confidence of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. He looked down. "Come on! I'm going to fall. Then I'll catch you." "Move, Liora. They'll be here soon." She grabbed the first handhold and pulled. Her arms shook, her feet slipped. But she climbed anyway because staying on the ground meant dying on the ground. Kale called down instructions. "Left hand, there's a grip. Now your right foot. Good. Keep moving." Halfway up, her hand slipped. She swung out into empty space, dangling by 3 fingers from a crack in the stone. For one terrible moment, she hung there, staring down at the rocks below. Then Kyle's hand closed around her wrist. "I've got you." He hauled her up the rest of the way with one arm, pulling her over the edge into the cave entrance. She lay on solid stone, gasping, every muscle trembling. "You did well," Kyle said. "I almost died." "But you didn't. That's what matters." The cave was deeper than it looked from below. The entrance opened into a chamber maybe 20 feet across, with a ceiling high enough to stand in. The back wall was solid stone. No other exits. Defensible, like Kyle said. Also a perfect trap. "If they find us here, we're cornered," Liora said. "If they find us here, they have to come through that entrance one at a time. I can hold that." He was already gathering loose stones, stacking them near the opening. "Get some rest. I'll keep watch." "You said that last time." "Last time I was scouting. This time I'm staying." He positioned himself where he could see the approach. "Sleep, Liora. Real sleep. You're going to need it." She wanted to argue, wanted to demand a better plan, but exhaustion was a physical weight now, pressing her down. She curled up against the back wall, using her arms as a pillow. "Kyle?" "Yes?"
Thank you for catching me. He was quiet for a moment. You're welcome.
She fell asleep to the sound of the river below and Kael's steady breathing in the darkness. When she woke, daylight streamed through the cave entrance. Her body was one massive bruise. Every movement hurt, but she was alive. Kael sat exactly where he'd been, watching the gorge below. He looked different. The symbols on his skin were moving faster, writhing like they were trying to escape. His jaw was clenched tight. Did you sleep at all? Liora asked. No. Kael, I don't need sleep the way you do. Not yet. The power from the seal is still feeding me. It'll fade eventually, but for now, he gestured vaguely. I'm fine. He didn't look fine. He looked like he was holding himself together through sheer will. Liora crawled over to sit beside him. The bond pulsed between them, and she saw him relax slightly at her proximity. What happens when the power fades? I become mortal again. Weaker, slower. He smiled without humor. Killable. How long do we have? Days. Maybe a week? Hard to say. He finally looked at her. The bond helps. Sharing the energy between us slows the drain, but it's still finite. So we're on borrowed time. We've always been on borrowed time. This just makes it more obvious. They sat in silence for a while, watching the river below. No signs of pursuit, no sounds except water and wind. I've been thinking, Kael said, about your wolf, the one they suppressed. What about it? The suppression was deliberate, professional. That kind of seal requires serious power and knowledge. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. My parents didn't have that kind of power. Or knowledge. They were nobody. Maybe they were hiding. Maybe that's why they suppressed your wolf. To hide you. Keep you safe from something. He turned to face her fully. The royal bloodline I mentioned. It wasn't just about magic. It was about politics. Power. If someone discovered you carried that blood even diluted, you'd be a target. A target for what? For people who want to control the bloodline. Or eliminate it completely. He paused. The war that buried me. It started because certain packs feared what my bloodline could become, what we could do with enough power and time. They killed us to prevent a future that might never have happened. That's insane. That's politics. Fear drives people to do terrible things. His eyes held hers. If your parents knew you carried royal blood, suppressing your wolf might have been the only way to keep you alive. Liora's head spun. This is too much. I was just trying to survive. I didn't ask for any of this. I know. His voice gentled. But it's yours now anyway. The question is what you do with it. What can I do? I'm running for my life from my own pack. I have no home, no allies, no... You have me. The words hung between them. You're not an ally, Liora said. You're a prisoner I freed, a bond I didn't choose. I'm the only one standing between you and death right now. That counts for something. He stood, stretching his massive frame. I'm going to scout the area. Stay here. Don't go near the entrance. You can't just leave me. I'll be back in an hour. Less if there's trouble. He was already at the cave mouth. If anyone comes who isn't me, hide in the shadows and don't make a sound. He dropped over the edge before she could protest. Liora sat alone in the cave, listening to the river, trying to process everything. Royal blood, suppressed wolves, bonds she didn't choose. A world that wanted her dead for the crime of existing. She looked at her hands. Scarred, calloused. The hands of a slave. Of a sacrifice. Of someone who was supposed to die quietly and be forgotten. But she hadn't died. She'd fought. And now she was... what? Free? Bound? Hunted? All of the above. She was examining her injured feet when she heard it. A sound from below. Voices. Multiple voices. Can't have gone far. Not with her injuries. The trail ends at the river. They must have used the water. Split up. Search both banks. If you find tracks, signal immediately. Liora's blood froze. She crawled to the entrance and peered down. 10 wolves moved along the riverbank. Not Greyvale colors. These wore different markings, different pack, same goal. One of them shifted to human form. A woman, tall and lean, with scars crossing her face. The council wants the girl alive. The male doesn't matter. Kill him on sight. What about the reward? One of the others asked. 50 gold marks for the girl. 20 for proof of the male's death. The scarred woman smiled. Easy money, if we find them first. Leora's stomach dropped. The council had put a bounty on them. This wasn't just Greyvale hunting them anymore. This was everyone. She pulled back from the entrance, heart racing. Where was Kyle? He'd said an hour. How long had it been? 15 minutes? 20? The voices below faded as the hunters moved upriver. But they'd be back. And when they found the tracks leading to the cliff, a sound behind her made her spin. A man stood at the back of the cave. Impossible. The back wall was solid stone. She'd checked. But he was there anyway, stepping out of shadows that shouldn't exist. He was old, ancient. Skin like weathered leather, white hair to his waist, eyes that glowed faintly silver. His robes were tattered, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. "Hello, child," he said. His voice was dry leaves and distant thunder. "I've been looking for you for a very long time." Liora scrambled backward. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" "Someone who knew your parents. Someone who helped them hide you from those who would destroy you." He took a step forward, and Liora noticed he cast no shadow. "Someone who needs to undo what they did. Stay back. I won't hurt you. I'm here to help." He raised his hands, palms out. Ancient scars crisscrossed his skin. "Your wolf, the seal that binds it. I can break it. I can give you the power to protect yourself, to never run again." "Why would you do that?" "Because you're the last of the royal line. The only one left who can challenge what's coming." His eyes bored into hers with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "The packs are fracturing. War is coming again. Without strong leadership, without the old bloodlines to hold things together, thousands will die. Children will starve. Innocents will burn." "I don't care about the packs. They threw me away like garbage." "Then do it for yourself. For survival." He moved closer, and the temperature in the cave dropped. "Right now, you're helpless. A burden to the one protecting you. How long before he tires of dragging you along? How long before he decides you're not worth the trouble?" The words hit like physical blows. Because she'd thought the same thing, wondered the same thing. "With your wolf awakened," the old man continued, "with your true power unlocked, you could be unstoppable. You could make them all pay for what they did to you. You could take everything they stole." Leora's mind raced. Everything he said made sense. She was helpless. She was a burden. Kyle would realize it eventually. Everyone always did. But something felt wrong. The way he appeared from nowhere, the way he knew exactly what to say, the way her instincts screamed danger even as her desperation whispered yes. "How did you find me?" she asked. "I've been tracking the royal bloodline for decades, centuries. When the seal on the tomb broke, I felt it ripple through the old magic. Knew you'd awakened." He smiled, and it was like watching a corpse grin. "You shine like a beacon to those who know how to look. Every mage, every dark thing in these lands can sense you now. If you can find me, so can others." "Yes, which is why we must act quickly." He extended his hand, and she saw the symbols carved into his palm, pulsing with sickly light. "Let me break the seal. Let me give you what they stole from you. Or stay weak, stay helpless, stay prey." Liora stared at his hand. Power, freedom, a chance to stop running, to stop being nothing, or a trap. Her gut screamed trap. "What do you get out of this?" she asked. His smile widened, showing too many teeth. "Smart girl. Your parents raised you well before they died." He lowered his hand. "I get an ally. Someone with the bloodline and power to help me rebuild what was lost. The old ways. The old order. Before the packs became weak and scattered. Before they forgot what real power looked like. You want to use me. I want to help you help yourself. What you do with the power after that is your choice." He moved closer, close enough that she could see the symbols weren't just carved into his skin. They were moving, crawling beneath the surface like living things. "But decide quickly, child. Those hunters below won't stay distracted forever. And when they find you," he shrugged. 50 gold marks buys a lot of loyalty." Liora looked at the cave entrance, then at the old man, then at her own hands, useless and weak. What did she want? Power? Freedom? Revenge? To not be helpless anymore. That's what she wanted, to never feel this weak again. If you break the seal, she said slowly, what happens to me? Your wolf awakens. Your true strength emerges. You become what you were always meant to be. He tilted his head, studying her like an insect under glass. It will hurt. The seal has been in place for 18 years. Breaking it will be traumatic. Your body will fight the change, but you'll survive. You're stronger than you know. How do you know that? Because you're still breathing. Most wouldn't have made it this far. Most would have broken long ago. Truth. She heard truth in his words, but also manipulation. He was telling her what she wanted to hear, feeding her desperation. I need to think about it, she said. There's no time for... A roar split the air outside. Kael's voice, furious and feral. Then the sound of combat, screams, snarls, metal against bone. Liora ran to the entrance. Below, Kael fought the hunting party. Blood everywhere, bodies on the ground, some moving, some not. But there were too many. They swarmed him from all sides, coordinated, professional. He was fast, strong, but even he couldn't fight 10 trained killers at once. The scarred woman shifted, her wolf form massive and battle-trained. She lunged for Kael's throat. He caught her mid-leap, slammed her into the ground hard enough to crater stone, but two others hit him from behind, driving him to his knees. A blade flashed, blood sprayed, Kael's blood. No! Liora screamed. The old man appeared beside her, his presence cold as winter. Let me break the seal, now, or watch him torn apart before your eyes. Your choice, child, but choose quickly. Kael roared again, throwing off his attackers with desperate strength. But more were coming. She could see them converging from upriver. 20 more, 30, a full war party. He couldn't win. Not against this many, not weakened from days without rest, from the power draining out of him. He was going to die protecting her. Unless... Do it, Liora gasped. Break the seal. Do it now. The old man's hand shot out, pressing against her chest directly over her heart. His smile was triumphant. As you wish. Power slammed into her like lightning striking bone. Pain. Unimaginable pain. Every cell in her body igniting at once, burning from the inside out. She screamed, couldn't stop screaming. Inside her, something moved. Something massive and ancient, stirring from sleep deeper than death. Chains she hadn't known existed shattered, one by one. A presence unfolded in her mind, vast, wild, furious at its imprisonment. Her wolf. It had been there all along, trapped, caged, screaming silently for 18 years while she suffered. Now it was free, and it was hungry. Power flooded through her in waves that threatened to tear her apart. Her bones cracked, reforming. Her skin burned as symbols blazed to life across her flesh. The same symbols on the old man's hand transferring to her, burning themselves into her like brands. No. Not transferring, revealing. They'd been there all along, hidden under the seal, written into her very DNA. The transformation hit like a tidal wave. Liora's body twisted, reformed. She tried to scream, but her throat was changing, vocal cords reshaping into something that could howl. She fell to her hands and knees as her skeleton restructured itself, became something built for killing. Through the agony, she heard the old man laughing. Yes! Yes, just as I hoped. Better than I dreamed. The white wolf, the lost bloodline. You're absolutely perfect. White wolf. The words penetrated the pain. White wolves were legend. Royal. Extinct for 300 years. The transformation completed in seconds that felt like hours of torture. When it was done, Liora stood on 4 legs instead of 2. Her senses exploded. She could smell everything, hear everything, see in colors she hadn't known existed. The world was suddenly alive in ways that made her human senses seem blind and deaf. She looked down at herself, at paws the size of dinner plates. White fur. Pure white, glowing faintly in the dim light like moonlight made solid. Now go, the old man said, his voice thick with satisfaction and something darker. Save him. Show them what you are. Show them all what happens when you wake a sleeping god. Liora didn't think. The wolf was in control now, and it had one purpose, one goal: protect what's ours. She leapt from the cave entrance. The fall should have killed her. 40 feet straight down onto jagged rocks. But she landed like she'd been doing it her whole life, all four paws absorbing the impact perfectly. And then she was running, faster than wind, faster than thought. The hunters saw her coming. Some scattered, others stood their ground, too shocked to move, too trained to run. The scarred woman shifted back to human, eyes wide with terror and something like religious awe.
"White wolf," she breathed. "Impossible. They're all dead. They're all—" Liora hit her like a freight train. The woman flew backward, crashed into two others who went down in a tangle of limbs and breaking bones. Liora didn't stop. She tore through the hunting party like they were made of paper and wishes, faster than them, stronger than them, fueled by 18 years of suppressed rage and pain and humiliation, and every moment she'd been powerless.
One wolf lunged at her throat. She caught it midair, jaws closing on its neck. Bone crunched like dry wood. It went limp. She dropped the body and moved to the next target. Another came from the side, trying to flank. She spun, claws raking across its face, tearing through flesh and muscle and bone. 4 parallel gouges opened from eye to jaw. It howled and fled, blood streaming, half its face hanging loose. A third tried to get behind her. She was faster, caught it by the leg, twisted, felt bones snap like kindling. It screamed, a sound that was almost human. The rest broke and ran. Liora let them go. Not mercy. Strategy. Let them spread the word. Let them tell everyone what happens when you hunt the last white wolf. She stood in the carnage, breathing hard, covered in blood that wasn't hers. The wolf inside her howled in triumph, wanting to chase, to hunt, to kill everything that moved until the world knew fear. Hale stared at her from where he'd fallen, bleeding from a dozen wounds. "Liora?" She tried to speak, but only a growl came out. The wolf was still in control, still riding the high of first transformation, first hunt, first kill. First taste of real power. "Easy," Hale said, hands up as he slowly got to his feet, favoring his left side where a blade had found ribs. "It's me. You're safe. You did it. You saved us both." Slowly, carefully, he approached. His hand touched her head, fingers running through white fur slick with blood. The bond between them flared, and Liora felt herself calming. The wolf receding slightly, letting her human mind resurface. "That's it. Come back now. You're still you. The wolf is part of you, but you're in control. You have to be in control." Was she? The wolf wanted to run, to hunt, to tear apart everything that had ever hurt them, to paint the world red. "Liora," Hale's voice, firm but gentle. "Look at me." She looked, met his eyes, saw herself reflected there, massive white wolf, eyes glowing silver like his, muzzle dripping red with the life of her enemies. Beautiful, terrible, unstoppable. "Shift back," he said. "You can do it. Just think of your human form. Picture it. Become it. You're stronger than the wolf. You control it, not the other way around." Liora tried. The wolf resisted, snarling inside her mind. It had been caged too long. It wanted freedom, wanted blood, wanted to run until the sun died. But she was stronger, barely, by a thread. With effort that left her shaking, she forced the shift. Bones cracked, fur receded. She collapsed to the ground, human again, gasping, naked, covered in blood and exhausted beyond measure, beyond anything she'd ever felt. Hale stripped off the cloak he'd taken from the dead hunter and wrapped it around her, his hands gentle despite his own injuries. "You did well, better than well. You're incredible. I killed them. Yes. I didn't hesitate, didn't think, just killed. And I liked it. That's what wolves do. That's what power does." He helped her sit up, wincing at his own wounds. First transformations are always violent, always overwhelming. The wolf has been caged. Now it's free. It will take time to find balance. Liora looked at her hands. Human again. But she could still feel the wolf inside, pacing, waiting, hungry for more. "What happened to me? What am I?" "The seal broke. Your wolf woke up. And apparently, you're exactly what the legend said. A white wolf. Royal bloodline. Probably the last one alive." His expression was grim. "The old man knew exactly what you were. Knew what breaking that seal would do." "The old man." Leora's head snapped up. She looked toward the cave. The entrance was empty. The old man was gone. Vanished like he'd never been there.
What old man? Kyle asked sharply.
He was in the cave, appeared from nowhere, from solid stone. He broke the seal. He said he wanted to help, that he needed an ally, that... She stopped. Because now that she thought about it, what had he said? Why had she trusted him? Why had it felt so right when every instinct screamed danger? The symbols on her skin burned faintly. She pulled the cloak aside to look. There, on her chest, right where the old man had touched her, was a mark. A sigil. Glowing faintly silver, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat like a second heart made of light and shadow. Kyle, what is this? What did he do to me? He stared at the mark. All color drained from his face, leaving him pale as death.
No, that's not possible. He's supposed to be dead. I watched him die 300 years ago. I was there. I saw the blade go through his heart. Who? Who are you talking about?
Theron, the dark mage who started the war, who tried to control the royal bloodlines, to use them as weapons to conquer the territories. Who wanted to burn the world and rebuild it in his image? Kyle grabbed her shoulders, his hands shaking, eyes wild with something between rage and terror. What exactly did he say to you? Every word. Tell me everything. Leora's blood turned to ice, understanding flooding through her like poison. He said he wanted to help me, that he'd been looking for me, that he needed an ally to rebuild the old order, that I could make them all pay. He marked you. This sigil, it's a binding, a claim, a leash, Kale's voice cracked. He can track you anywhere now, can influence you, twist your thoughts, can use your power as his own. You're not just bonded to me anymore, Liora. You're bound to him, body and soul. A voice echoed across the gorge, impossibly clear despite the distance. Old, dry, amused, triumphant. Very good, young king. You always were perceptive, such a sharp mind. Pity it won't save you. Nothing will save you now. The mark on Leora's chest flared bright as the sun, and her body moved without her permission, hands reaching for Kyle's throat like they belonged to someone else, the wolf inside her snarling with hunger and rage that wasn't entirely her own. Her hands closed around Kyle's throat. She felt her fingers tighten, felt his pulse hammering beneath her palms, felt the strength in her grip that could crush bone, and she couldn't stop. Her body wasn't hers anymore. Liora, fight it, Kyle choked out, but he didn't fight back, didn't try to break her grip, just stared at her with those pale gray eyes. The mark on her chest burned like acid. The wolf inside her snarled, confusion and rage tangling together. This wasn't right. This was the mate. This was Pack. Why were they hurting Pack? But the compulsion was stronger. The sigil pulsed, and her hand squeezed harder. Fight it, Kale gasped again. You're stronger than him. Stronger than the binding. Was she? The magic felt absolute, overwhelming, like trying to fight gravity or the tide. Theron's voice echoed again, coming from everywhere and nowhere. Kill him, child. He's using you just like the others did. He only kept you alive because you're useful. The moment you're not, he'll throw you away like garbage, like they all did. The words burrowed into her mind like parasites. Because wasn't it true? Kyle had said it himself. She was useful. That's why he protected her. Not because he cared, because she was valuable. That's not true, Kyle managed, his face turning red. The bond? It's real. You feel it. I feel it. The bond is just another chain, Theron's voice whispered, intimate as a lover. Another way to control you. Break it. Break him. Be free. Leora's hands trembled. Part of her wanted to squeeze until Kale stopped breathing. Part of her wanted to let go and run until she couldn't run anymore. Part of her just wanted all of this to stop. And beneath it all, the wolf. Confused, angry, protective. Mate, the wolf growled. Our mate. Not hurt, not kill. The compulsion pushed harder. The sigil flared brighter. Leora's hands tightened another inch. Kale's eyes started to roll back. No. The word came from somewhere deep inside her. Not from Theron's compulsion. Not from the wolf. From her. From Liora Hale, who'd survived 6 years of slavery and a ritual designed to kill her in a tomb full of ancient death. From the girl who'd looked at her execution and chosen defiance instead. No. She was tired of being controlled. Tired of being used. tired of being told what to do by packs and councils and ancient mages who thought they owned her. The mark on her chest burned hotter, trying to force obedience. The compulsion wrapped around her will like chains. Liora grabbed those chains with everything she had and pulled. The pain was instant and absolute, like ripping out her own spine. The sigil fought back, sending agony through every nerve. She screamed, her hands finally releasing Kael's throat as she collapsed. The mark blazed white-hot, trying to brand itself deeper into her flesh, trying to sink hooks into her soul. She pulled harder. The wolf rose inside of her, not to transform, but to fight. It threw itself against the binding, claws and teeth tearing at magical chains. The bond with Kael flared, feeding her strength that wasn't her own. And somewhere in that combination, her will, the wolf's fury, Kael's power flowing through their bond, something gave. The sigil cracked. Not broke, not vanished, but cracked. A hairline fracture splitting the perfect symbol on her chest. Theron's presence recoiled. Impossible! You can't! That's not— Get out of my head! Liora screamed. She poured everything into that crack. Every ounce of rage, every moment of humiliation, every second she'd spent powerless. The binding shattered like glass, pieces of the sigil flaking off her skin like ash. Theron's voice cut off mid-word. Silence. Liora collapsed onto the blood-soaked ground, gasping. Her chest felt like someone had carved it open. The mark was still there. She could feel it, but dimmed, broken, no longer controlling her. Kael rolled onto his side, coughing, one hand at his throat. That was, he wheezed, that was incredible and insane, mostly insane. Did I hurt you? I'll live. He sat up slowly, wincing. You broke a binding sigil, through sheer force of will. Do you know how impossible that is? Felt pretty possible from where I was standing. Most people would have killed me, would have followed the compulsion until I was dead. But you— He shook his head. You're stronger than I thought. Stronger than he thought, apparently. Liora looked at her hands. They were shaking. I could feel him in my head, whispering, telling me you were using me. I know. Are you? She met his eyes. Using me? Kael was quiet for a long moment. Around them the gorge was silent. The bodies of the hunters lay where they'd fallen. Blood stained the rocks. The river ran red. Yes, he said finally. At first, you were a means to escape, to break the seal. I would have said anything, done anything to get free. The honesty hurt worse than the compulsion had. And now? She asked quietly. Now? He looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression was raw, unguarded. Now I don't know, the bond is real. What I feel through it is real. Whether that's love or just magical connection, I can't tell. Maybe there's no difference. But I know I don't want to lose you, not because you're useful, because you're you. It wasn't a declaration of love, wasn't pretty or romantic, but it was honest. And right now, that mattered more. We need to move, Liora said, pushing herself to her feet. Everything hurt. Theron will send more, and the council's bounty is still active. You're right. Kael stood, testing his injured leg. But first, we need to do something about that mark. I broke it. You cracked it. There's a difference. He can still track you through it, just not control you. We need to find someone who can remove it completely. Who? Every pack wants us dead. Not every pack. Kael looked north toward the wild lands beyond the gorge. There are others out there, rogues, outcasts, people who've rejected pack law. If we can find them, if we can convince them we're not threats. That's a lot of ifs. You have a better plan? Liora looked around at the carnage, at the bodies, at the blood on her hands that she could still feel even in human form. No, I guess I don't. They gathered what they could from the dead hunters. Weapons, food, clothes that almost fit. Liora pulled on pants and a shirt that were too big, but better than the blood-soaked cloak. The fabric rubbed against the cracked mark on her chest, making her wince. How far do these rogues? She asked. 3 days, maybe 4. Through territory no pack claims. Why doesn't anyone claim it? Because everything there wants to kill you. He tossed her a blade. Stay close, stay quiet, and if I tell you to run, you run. Don't argue, don't look back, just run. I'm not leaving you behind. You will if it means surviving." His voice was hard. "That's not negotiable, Liora. You're too valuable to lose." Valuable. The word tasted bitter. There's that word again. Hale grabbed her arm, not rough but firm. "I didn't mean it like that. I meant you're the last of the royal bloodline, the only white wolf in 3 centuries. If you die, that dies with you. The world needs—" "I don't care what the world needs." Liora pulled her arm free. "The world threw me away. I don't owe it anything." "Maybe not, but you owe yourself a chance to be more than what they made you." The words hit harder than she expected. She stared at him, this ancient king who'd been buried alive for crimes he may or may not have committed, and saw something she recognized. Someone who'd been thrown away too. "Fine," she said. 3 days. But if your rogue friends try to kill us, I'm blaming you." "Fair enough." They climbed out of the gorge as the sun climbed higher. The day was clear, cold, beautiful in a way that made the violence seem surreal. Birds sang, water sparkled, like the world didn't care that people had died here. Maybe it didn't. They walked north, leaving the river behind, entering forests so old the trees seemed to remember things humans had forgotten. The canopy blocked most of the sunlight. Moss covered everything. The air smelled like rot and growth in equal measure. "Tell me about the war," Liora said after an hour of silence. "The one that got you buried." Hale was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "It started small. Border disputes, territorial arguments, the usual pack politics. My bloodline controlled the northern territories. We were strong, maybe too strong. The other packs feared what we might become. So they attacked. So they formed an alliance. 7 packs united against one. They called it justice, called us tyrants who needed to be stopped before we enslaved everyone. He pushed through a tangle of vines. Maybe they were right. My father was not kind. He believed in strength above everything. Mercy was weakness. Compassion was failure." "What did you believe?" "I believed in survival, in protecting my people. When the war came, I fought, killed more than I can count, became the monster they said I was." His voice went distant. "The last battle lasted 3 days. They overwhelmed us through numbers, killed everyone, my parents, my siblings, my mate." Liora stopped walking. "You had a mate?" 300 years ago. She died in the first assault. They made sure I watched." He didn't turn around. "When it was over, when I was the last one left, they couldn't kill me. I was too strong, too fast. So they called in Theron. The mage who just tried to control me. The same. He created the seal, the tomb, the ritual that would use sacrifices to keep me imprisoned. 23 girls fed to that magic over 3 centuries. His hands clenched. 23 deaths to keep one man buried, and I couldn't do anything but listen to them scream. The weight of that settled between them. Liora thought about the tomb, the bones in the corridor, the girls who'd come before her. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Don't be. I'm not innocent. I've killed hundreds, maybe thousands. I was a weapon long before they buried me. The only difference is now I get to choose my targets." They walked on. The forest grew darker. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, calls that didn't sound like any animal Liora knew. She gripped the blade Hale had given her tighter. "Movement," Hale said suddenly. "Ahead. Multiple contacts." Liora's heart hammered. "Hunters?" "No, something else. Get ready." Figures emerged from the undergrowth. Not wolves. Not entirely human either. They moved wrong. Joints bending at strange angles, skin that seemed to shift and change texture. There were 6 of them, surrounding Liora and Hale in a loose circle. The largest one stepped forward. Male, maybe. Hard to tell with the way its features kept sliding between forms. "You're the White Wolf." Not a question, a statement. "Yes," Liora said, because lying seemed pointless. "The council wants you dead or alive, preferably dead." Its voice was like gravel scraping glass. 50 gold marks. That's a fortune to people like us. "People like you?" Hale asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Rejected. Changed. Too twisted for the packs to accept."
The creature's smile showed too many teeth. Shapeshifters who can't control their forms. We're what happens when the bloodlines break down completely. And you, it pointed at Liora, you're the bloodline at its peak, pure, perfect, royal. I'm not perfect. I'm just trying to survive.
Aren't we all? The creature tilted its head at an angle that should have broken its neck. Here's the problem. We could kill you, take the bounty, feed our people for months. But, Kyle prompted, but you killed a hunting party single-handedly, broke a dark mage's binding through will alone. That's power we haven't seen in generations. The creature looked at its companions. We could use power like that. Use how? Liora asked. The packs reject us, hunt us when we get too close to their territories. We're forced to hide in places like this, scraping by, dying young. The creature's form solidified slightly into something almost human. But with a white wolf? With royal blood? We could demand recognition, force them to acknowledge us, give our children a chance at real lives. You want me to fight your battles? We want you to give us legitimacy. The rest we can handle ourselves. The creature extended something that was trying to be a hand. My name is Rin. I lead this group. 43 souls, all rejected by the packs, all dying slowly from the instability in our blood. Help us, and we'll help you. Refuse, and... It shrugged. Well, 50 gold marks is 50 gold marks. Kale moved closer to Liora. She's not some figurehead you can parade around. Then what is she? Rin's form shifted, became more predatory. A fugitive with a bounty. A girl with power she barely understands. A royal bloodline with no kingdom. She needs us as much as we need her. The other shapeshifters closed in slightly. Not threatening, not yet. But the message was clear. Liora looked at them. At Rin with its unstable form. At the others who couldn't quite hold a single shape. At people the packs had thrown away, just like they'd thrown away her. What exactly do you want from me? She asked. Acknowledgement, recognition, a chance for our people to exist without hiding. Rin's voice softened. You know what it's like to be rejected, to be called broken, to be deemed worthless. We all do. That's what binds us, not blood, not pack law, but the fact that the world tried to erase us and failed. Truth. She heard it in every word. And if I say no, then we kill you and collect the bounty. Not because we want to, because we have to. Rin's form flickered. But I hope you say yes. We could do something real together, something that matters. Kael leaned close, whispering. This is a trap. It has to be. They can't be trusted. Can anyone? Liora whispered back. You said yourself we need allies. These people know what it's like to be rejected. That's more common ground than we'll find with any pack. They're unstable, dangerous. So am I, apparently. She looked at Rin. If I agree, what happens? We take you to our settlement. You meet the others. We discuss terms, equal terms. Not master and servant, partners. Rin's hand was still extended. And we teach you to control your wolf, to use your power without losing yourself to it. Because right now you're a bomb waiting to explode. That was true too. Liora could feel the wolf pacing inside her, still hungry, still wanting blood. The transformation had awakened something she didn't fully understand. One question, she said. Why should I trust you when you're literally threatening to kill me if I don't cooperate? Rin actually laughed. Honesty. I'm being honest about our situation. We're desperate. You're valuable. That makes this a negotiation, not a friendship. But its form solidified into something that looked almost human, kind even. I remember what it's like to hope for something better, to believe the world could change. You brought that back. Just by existing, just by surviving when you should have died. That's worth more than 50 gold marks. Liora looked at Kael. He shook his head slightly. Bad idea, his expression said. She looked at Rin's extended hand. Every survival instinct screamed danger. These were desperate people, unstable, offering a deal that could turn into a death sentence the moment she was no longer useful. But they were also honest about it. And they understood rejection. And maybe, just maybe, they could teach her to control the power burning inside her before it consumed her completely. Equal partners, she said. Not servants, not tools, partners. Agreed. And if this is a trap,
I'll kill every one of you before you can collect that bounty. Rin's smile widened. I'd expect nothing less from a white wolf. Liora took the offered hand. The moment their skin touched, she felt it. The instability in Rin's form, the way its body fought against itself constantly, trying to be wolf and human and something in between all at once. It was agony, constant, unending agony, and Rin lived with it every day. Deal, Liora said. The tension broke. The other shapeshifters relaxed. Hale didn't, but he lowered his guard slightly. Follow me, Rin said. Our settlement is half a day north. You'll need to keep up. We don't slow down for anyone. They moved through the forest like ghosts. Liora struggled to match their pace, her human body still exhausted from the transformation and the fight and breaking Theron's binding. Hale stayed close, one hand always near his weapon. This is a mistake, he muttered. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. You're trusting them too easily. I'm trusting them the exact right amount, which is not at all. But I'm also out of options. She pushed through a thorn bush, ignoring the scratches. Unless you have a better plan? He didn't answer, because he didn't have one. The settlement appeared suddenly, hidden so well Liora almost walked past it. Structures built into the trees, under the earth, camouflaged with moss and vines. Maybe 50 people lived here, maybe more, all of them twisted in some way. Forms that couldn't quite settle. Features that shifted and changed. Children played in a clearing. Actual children, laughing despite the instability that made their faces flicker between human and wolf. Welcome, Rhine said, to the rejected. People gathered as they entered, staring, whispering. Some looked hopeful, others hostile. A few dropped to their knees when they saw Liora's white fur. She'd shifted partially, without meaning to, stress bringing out the wolf. Is it true? An old woman asked, her voice crackling between human and animal. Are you really royal blood? I don't know what I am, Liora said honestly. I'm just trying to survive. She's one of us, Ren announced. Rejected by her pack, hunted by the council. She understands what it means to be thrown away. Murmurs of agreement, of recognition. She can help us, Ren continued. Give us legitimacy, force the packs to acknowledge us. Or she can get us all killed, someone shouted. There's a bounty on her head. Every pack will come looking. Let them come, another voice called. We're tired of hiding. The crowd erupted into argument. Some wanted to help Liora. Others wanted to turn her in for the bounty. Still others wanted to use her as a weapon against the packs. Liora stood in the center of it all, watching people who looked like her argue about her fate, just like the council had, just like Greyvale had. Different faces. Same pattern. Enough, Kyle's voice cut through the chaos. You want legitimacy? Recognition? You won't get it by arguing amongst yourselves like children. The crowd turned to him, hostile, suspicious. Who are you to tell us anything? Someone demanded. I'm Cale Draven, the Alpha King your grandparents buried 300 years ago. His voice carried absolute authority. I know what it takes to build a kingdom, to unite fractured people. And I can tell you this, it doesn't happen through fear or desperation. It happens through strength, through purpose, through refusing to back down even when the world wants you dead. Silence. You want to be recognized, Cale continued. Then stop hiding. Stop scraping by in the shadows. Stand up. Make them see you. Make them acknowledge you. And if they refuse, he smiled, and it was sharp and dangerous. Make them regret it. The crowd shifted. Some people stood straighter. Others nodded. A few started to believe. The white wolf isn't your salvation, Kyle said. She's a symbol. A reminder that the packs don't control everything. That royal blood still exists outside their rules. Use that. Build on that. But don't expect her to fight your battles for you. She has enough of her own. Liora stared at him. This was the king he'd been. The leader who'd built a kingdom strong enough that 7 packs had to unite to destroy it. Rin stepped forward. He's right. We've been surviving when we should have been living. That changes now, with or without the pack's permission. So what do? The old woman asked. We train, Rin said. We organize. We stop acting like refugees and start acting like a pack, our own pack, the rejected. And when we're ready, its form solidified into something fierce and proud. We march to the nearest territory and demand recognition, as equals, not beggars, not outcasts,
Equals. The crowd roared approval. Liora felt something shift in the air. Power. Purpose. These people had been hiding for so long they'd forgotten what it meant to fight back. Now they remembered. We'll need weapons, someone said. Training, strategy. And allies, another added. Other groups like us. Build a coalition.
First, Rin said, we teach our white wolf to control her power. A symbol is useless if it burns itself out. It looked at Liora. Tomorrow, we start training. Tonight, you rest. You've earned it. They were given a small dwelling, basically a cave with furniture. Kyle checked it for threats while Liora collapsed onto a bed that was just moss and furs but felt like luxury. That was quite a speech, she said. Someone had to say it. Kyle sat heavily, finally letting his exhaustion show. They were tearing themselves apart. Needed direction. You're good at that. Leading. I've had practice. And 300 years to think about where I went wrong. He looked at her. This could work, you know. They commit. They organize. The rejected could become a real force. Or they could all die. There's a bounty on me, remember? This place won't stay hidden forever.
Then we make sure they're ready when it comes. He lay back, staring at the ceiling. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Liora closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. Her mind spun with everything that had happened, the transformation, the fight, breaking Theron's binding, meeting the rejected, and underneath it all, the wolf, pacing, watching, waiting. She could feel it now, not as a separate thing, but as part of her. Her anger, her power, her capacity for violence. It wasn't a curse or a blessing. It just was. And she was going to have to learn to live with it, or it would destroy her from the inside out. Somewhere in the settlement, someone howled. Others joined in. Not a hunting call, a declaration, a promise. We're still here. We're still fighting. We won't disappear. Liora found herself howling with them. The sound tore from her throat, half human, half wolf. Raw, defiant. The sound of someone who'd been thrown away and refused to stay down. When the howling faded, Kyle was watching her. Feel better? Actually, yes. Good, because tomorrow we teach you to fight, really fight, not just survive, fight to win. Liora smiled. For the first time since leaving the tomb, she felt something other than fear or rage. She felt ready. The training started before dawn. Rin dragged Liora from sleep with zero ceremony, dumping a bucket of ice-cold water over her head. Up! Your wolf needs discipline before it eats you alive. Liora sputtered, gasping. What the? No time. Move. The training ground was a clearing deep in the forest, ringed by ancient stones that hummed with old magic. A dozen shapeshifters waited there, all in various stages of transformation. Some held human form with visible strain, others flickered between shapes like broken images. The problem with first transformations, Rin said, its form settling into something wolf-like, is that the beast thinks it's in charge. It's been caged. Now it's free. It wants to run wild, kill everything, never be trapped again. That sounds about right, Liora admitted. So we teach it who's really in control. Rin's smile was all teeth. Shift. Now. Liora tried to summon the wolf like she had during the fight. Nothing happened. I said shift. I'm trying. Try harder. The wolf is part of you, not a separate thing you call up. It's your rage, your power, your survival instinct. Stop asking it to come out. Just be it. Liora closed her eyes, reached inside herself for that presence she'd felt. The wolf was there, pacing, watching, but it didn't respond to her call. You're too polite, Rin said. The wolf doesn't respond to requests. It responds to need, to desperation, to... It lunged. Liora barely dodged. Rin's claws passed inches from her throat. Instinct took over. The transformation hit like lightning, bones cracking, fur erupting. She landed on 4 paws, snarling. There we go, Rin said, circling. Now we see what you can actually do. It attacked again. Liora met it head-on, claws against claws, strength against strength. They broke apart. Rin was faster, more experienced. It feinted left, struck right, caught Leora's shoulder. Blood bloomed in white fur. The wolf inside her roared, wanted to tear Rin apart, end the threat, kill... Control it, Rin snapped. Feel the rage. Use it. Don't let it use you. Easier said than done. The wolf wanted blood, wanted victory, wanted. Liora forced herself to stop, to think. This wasn't a fight to the death. This was training. Rin wasn't prey, wasn't enemy, was pack. The wolf resisted that thought, but slowly, grudgingly, it settled. Still alert, still ready, but controlled. Better, Rin said. Now shift back, without passing out this time. Liora focused on her human form. The wolf fought her, not wanting to be caged again. But she was stronger now. She understood what Rin had said. The wolf wasn't separate. It was her. Her anger, her power, her refusal to stay down. She couldn't cage it. She had to integrate it. The shift came smoother this time. Still painful, still exhausting, but faster. More controlled. She collapsed to her knees, human again, bleeding from the shoulder. 3 minutes, Rin announced. Last time took you 10. Progress. Feels like dying. It gets easier. Eventually your body stops fighting the change, starts to flow with it. Rin offered a hand, pulled her up. Again. They trained for hours. Shift. Fight. Shift back. Over and over until Liora's body screamed and her mind felt like it was splitting, but each time got marginally easier, each transformation a little smoother. Kyle watched from the edge of the clearing, arms crossed. When Rin finally called a break, he approached with water and clean bandages. "You're doing well," he said, cleaning the cuts on her shoulder. "I'm dying. That too. But you're learning fast, faster than most." He wrapped the wound with practiced efficiency. Ryan's method is brutal but effective. Pain teaches better than patience. Feels like both are trying to kill me. They are. That's the point. If you can't handle training, you won't survive what's coming. Liora drank deeply, her throat raw. What is coming? Word spreading. The rejected are organizing. That makes the packs nervous. They'll send someone to investigate, probably soon. He finished the bandage. We need you ready to stand with them when that happens. Not just as a symbol, as a fighter. No pressure. Oh, there's massive pressure. But you've handled everything else they've thrown at you. You'll handle this too. The afternoon brought different training. Strategy, pack tactics, how to coordinate with others in wolf form. It turned out fighting as a group was completely different from fighting alone. Wolves are pack hunters, explained an older shapeshifter named Garrett, his form stable enough to maintain mostly human. We coordinate, we communicate. One distracts, another strikes. You ever hunt alone? I've never hunted at all, Liora admitted. Then we start basic. See those targets? He pointed at crude dummies set up across the clearing. You and 3 others. Take them down. Coordinate. Use the bond. What bond? The pack bond. You feel it? Garrett's eyes unfocused slightly. The awareness of where others are, what they're doing. It's instinct. Liora reached for it and felt something. Not thoughts exactly, but presence, awareness. She knew where the 3 other wolves were without looking. Knew they were circling, waiting for her signal. I'm not the leader, she said. You're the white wolf. You're always the leader. Garrett smiled. Get used to it. The first attempt was a disaster. Liora zigged when she should have zagged, crashed into another wolf, and they both went down in a snarling heap. The targets remained untouched. The second attempt was worse. The third was marginally better. By the 10th, they moved like they'd been training together for months instead of hours. Liora led from instinct, the bond telling her where everyone was, where they needed to be. They took down all 5 targets in under 30 seconds. Not bad, Garrett said, for a beginner. By sunset, every muscle in Liora's body hurt. She could barely walk. But she'd shifted 6 times without passing out, fought a dozen training bouts, and led a coordinated attack that actually worked. Progress. Kyle found her at the settlement's edge, watching the sun set through the trees. How do you feel? Like I've been trampled by a horse. Good sign. Means you pushed hard enough. He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. The bond hummed between them, soothing some of the pain. You're impressive. You know that? I'm a mess. An impressive mess. He looked at her sidelong. Most people would have broken by now, died in the tomb or during the escape, or when Theron marked you. But you're still here, still fighting. What else is there to do? Give up. Plenty do. It's easier than fighting. Liora thought about that. About all the moments she could have given up. Should have, maybe. I spent 6 years doing what others told me. Being what they needed me to be. Accepting that I was worthless. I'm done with that. If the world wants me dead, it's going to have to work for it. Kyle laughed. There's the white wolf I freed. You didn't free me. I freed you. We freed each other. It's more poetic that way. They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell. Around them, the settlement came alive with firelight and voices, children laughing, adults talking, the normal sounds of people living instead of just surviving. They have hope now, Kyle said quietly. You gave them that. I didn't do anything. You existed. You refused to die. Sometimes that's enough. 3 days later, the packs came. Liora was in the middle of sparring with Rin when the alarm went up. A series of howls that meant danger. Incoming. Prepare for battle. How many? Rin demanded. A scout ran up, breathless. 20, maybe more. Greyvale colors moving fast toward the settlement. Leora's stomach dropped. Greyvale. Her old pack. Coming for her. Everyone to positions, Rin ordered. The shapeshifters scattered, taking up defensive positions they'd practiced. Liora, get to the center of the settlement. You're too valuable to risk in... No. Leora's voice was hard. I'm not hiding while others fight my battle. You're not ready for... I'm ready enough. She looked at Kyle. You said we need to stand together when they come. They're here. I'm standing. Kyle studied her face, then nodded. Don't do anything stupid. Define stupid. Dying. That would be stupid. I'll keep it in mind. The Greyvale wolves emerged from the forest in formation. Professional, disciplined, led by a figure Liora recognized even from a distance. Captain Marcus, the one Kyle had let live at the gorge. He shifted to human form, flanked by 2 others who stayed wolf. We're looking for Liora Hale. The council wants her for questioning regarding the destruction of sacred property and the release of a sealed prisoner. She's under our protection, Rin called back. Leave. Now. You're harboring a fugitive. That makes you accomplices. Marcus's voice was hard but not cruel, just doing his job. Hand her over and we leave peacefully. Refuse and we take her by force. Try it, Kyle said, stepping forward. See how that works out. Marcus paled slightly, recognizing him. You, the thing from the tomb, king. The word you're looking for is king. Kale's smile was sharp. Your alpha sent 20 wolves to capture 1 girl. That tell you something about how scared he is? Alpha Tauren fears nothing. Then why isn't he here himself? Why send you to do his dirty work? Murmurs ran through the Greyvale ranks. Good question. If this was really about justice, the Alpha should be leading the charge. Marcus's jaw tightened. Last chance. Hand over the girl. Liora stepped forward before anyone could stop her. I'm right here, Marcus. You want me? Come take me. Every eye turned to her. She stood in human form, unarmed, wearing borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit, but she stood straight, unafraid. Liora Hale, Marcus said formally, you're under arrest for what? Surviving? The pack threw me away, sent me to die. I didn't die. That's not a crime. You destroyed the tomb, released a prisoner, killed council hunters. I defended myself. They attacked me. What was I supposed to do? Let them murder me? You're a danger to who? To packs that think they can throw away anyone who doesn't fit their standards? Her voice rose. I'm not the danger here. You are. All of you. You and your councils and your alphas who decide who's worthy and who's garbage. You're the ones who should be on trial. Silence. Even Marcus looked taken aback. Look around you, Liora continued, gesturing at the rejected. These people were thrown away too, called broken, defective, worthless, just like me. But they're still here, still surviving, still refusing to disappear just because you want them to. They're unstable, dangerous. So am I, apparently. But I'm still a person. They're still people. We deserve to exist, even if we don't fit your perfect little boxes. She felt the wolf rising in her, not to attack, to make a point. She let it come, the transformation flowing smoother than ever before. White fur gleamed in the fading light. Silver eyes blazed. The Greyvale wolves stepped back. Even Marcus looked shaken.
"I am the White Wolf," Liora said, her voice carrying despite the changed throat. "Royal bloodline."
The thing your legend said was extinct. I'm standing here because I refused to die when you decided I should. And I'm telling you now, leave. Take your bounty and your orders and go home. Or find out what happens when you push someone who has nothing left to lose. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Alpha Tauren himself walked out of the forest. Liora's heart stuttered. The Alpha never left Packlands. Never. His presence here meant this was bigger than she'd thought. "Impressive speech," Tauren said, his voice carrying natural authority. "Almost believed it myself." He looked at her with eyes that held no mercy. "But words don't change facts. You're a threat. To Pack's stability, to the order that keeps thousands alive and fed. I can't let you roam free." "You mean you can't let anyone question your authority?" "Same thing." He gestured and more wolves emerged from the forest. 50. 100. The entire Greyvale war party. "I gave you a choice, girl. Come quietly and face a fair trial. Or resist and be put down like the rabid animal you've become." The rejected tensed. They were outnumbered 3-1. Maybe worse. This was it. Fight and probably die. Surrender and definitely die. Liora looked at Rin, at Garrett, at all the faces watching her, hoping she had an answer. She looked at Kyle. He gave the slightest nod. "Your choice. I'll follow it." She looked at Alpha Tauren, the man who'd signed her death warrant, who'd sold her into slavery to pay her parents' debt, who'd decided she was worthless before she'd even had a chance. "No," she said. "No? No. I won't submit. Won't surrender. Won't make it easy for you." She took a step forward. "You want me? Come take me. But understand this. I'm not the scared girl you threw away. I'm not powerless anymore. And if you come at me, if you attack these people who've done nothing but survive." Her wolf form grew larger, power radiating from her like heat. "I will burn your pack to the ground." Tauren's expression didn't change. "Kill them all!" The Greyvale wolves charged. Everything happened at once. The rejected met them head-on, shapeshifters against pure wolves, chaos erupting across the clearing. Liora threw herself into the fight, moving on instinct and training, the pack bond telling her where allies were, where enemies struck. She caught a wolf mid-leap, threw it into 2 others, ducked under slashing claws, spun and raked her own across exposed flanks. The world narrowed to teeth and blood, and the constant movement of staying alive. Kale fought like a demon, cutting through wolves with brutal efficiency. But even he couldn't be everywhere. The rejected fought hard, but they were outnumbered. Outmatched, starting to fall back. Liora saw a young shapeshifter go down under 3 wolves, saw Rin take a blade to the side, saw the settlement burning as someone set fire to the dwellings. They were losing. She threw back her head and howled. Not a call for help, a challenge, a promise. And something answered. The forest exploded with wolves. But not Greyvale wolves. These were different. Rogues, outcasts, rejected from other packs who'd heard the call and come running. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They crashed into the Greyvale ranks like a hammer, turning the tide instantly. Alpha Tauren's eyes widened. "Where did they—" "You're not the only one who can call allies," Rin snarled, bleeding but alive. "We sent word. To every outcast, every refugee, every person the packs threw away." They answered. The battle turned brutal. Greyvale fought well, but they were surrounded now, outnumbered. Wolves fell on both sides. Blood soaked the earth. Through the chaos, Liora saw Tauren moving toward her. The Alpha in full wolf form, massive and scarred from decades of battle. He hit her like a battering ram, driving her to the ground. They rolled, snapping and clawing. He was stronger. More experienced, landed a bite on her shoulder that sent lightning through her nerves. But she was younger, faster, fueled by 18 years of rage. She twisted under him, got her hind legs against his stomach, and kicked. He flew backward, crashed into a tree. She was on him before he could recover, jaws at his throat. One bite. That's all it would take. End him, end the pack that threw her away. "Do it," Tauren growled. "Prove me right. Prove you're the monster I said you were." Leora's jaws tightened. Her teeth broke skin. His blood hit her tongue. She could end this right now, one bite. But something Kyle had said echoed in her mind. You're stronger than the wolf. You control it. She wasn't doing this for revenge, wasn't doing this to prove anything to Torin. She was doing this to survive, to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Killing Torin would make her the monster, would justify everything he'd said about her. Liora released him and stepped back.
I'm not your monster, she said, shifting to human, standing over him bleeding and exhausted.
I'm not your sacrifice. I'm not your anything. I'm just someone who refused to die when you decided I should. Remember that. Remember that the girl you threw away could have killed you and chose not to. She turned her back on him, walked away. Behind her, Torin didn't attack, didn't move, just lay there, defeated not by death but by mercy he didn't deserve. The battle ended shortly after. Greyvale, leaderless and outnumbered, retreated. The rejected and their rogue allies howled victory into the night. Liora collapsed. Everything hurt. Blood matted her fur, her own and others. She couldn't tell which. Kael found her there, shifted back to human, covered in wounds but alive. You let him live.
Yeah. Why?
Because killing him would have made me like him. Someone who decides who's worthy of life. I'm not playing that game.
Kael smiled. You're better than I was. Better than I am. You would have killed him? Without hesitation. But I was raised to rule through fear. He helped her sit up. You're building something different, something better. The settlement was damaged but standing. Casualties on both sides, but fewer than expected. And word was spreading. The rejected had stood against a major pack and won. The white wolf had spared an alpha's life. That meant something. Would mean more as the story spread. Over the next weeks, more came, outcasts, refugees, rejected from packs across the territories. They came because they'd heard about the white wolf who refused to die, about a settlement that didn't judge by bloodline purity, but by strength of will. The settlement grew, became a village, started to look like a real pack. Reen approached Liora one morning as she practiced shifting. We need to make this official. Make what official? You as our alpha. The rejected need a leader. Someone to... No. Liora shook her head. I'm not an alpha. I'm just... You're the white wolf who stood down Torin, who united outcasts from a dozen territories, who gave us hope when we had none. Rin's expression was serious. You don't have to rule like the old alphas did. Make your own way, but we need you to lead, officially.
Liora looked around at the village, at people who'd come from nothing, built something real. I don't know how to be an alpha. None of us knew how to survive out here. We learned. You'll learn too. Rin smiled. Besides, you have Kyle, former king. He can teach you. That night, under the full moon, the rejected gathered. Hundreds now. All of them rejected, broken, thrown away by the packs. All of them refusing to disappear. Rin spoke first. We were nothing, scattered, hiding, dying slow. Then she came. The white wolf, the last royal, the girl they sent to die who refused. Liora stood in the center of the circle, feeling dozens of eyes on her. Kyle stood beside her, solid and steady. She showed us that being rejected doesn't mean being worthless, Rin continued, that power comes from refusing to break, from standing together, from choosing mercy even when rage is easier. One by one, the rejected howled their agreement. So we ask now, Rin said. Liora Hale, White Wolf, last of the royal bloodline. Will you be our alpha? Will you lead us not as subjects but as equals? Will you help us build something new? Liora looked at all those faces, at hope she'd helped create just by existing, by surviving. She thought about the girl dragged to the tomb in chains, about the sacrifice everyone expected to die quietly. That girl was dead, had died in the darkness when she chose defiance over acceptance. What stood here now was something else, something stronger, something that understood rejection and mercy and the power of refusing to stay down. Yes, she said, but we do this different. No one gets thrown away. No one gets judged worthless. We build something that accepts everyone the packs rejected. We become what they fear, living proof that their judgments don't matter. The howls shook the forest. Agreement, acceptance, a new pack born from the ashes of 1,000 rejections. Kale smiled at her. You're going to change the world. I'm just trying to survive it. Same thing for people like us. Months passed. The village became a town. The rejected became the Stonehaven Pack, named for the settlement built on stone and determination. Other packs noticed. Some sent ambassadors. Others sent threats. None sent attacks. Not after word spread about what happened to Greyvale's war party. Alpha Tauren sent a message 3 months after the battle. Short. Formal. Acknowledging Stonehaven as sovereign territory, recognizing Liora as Alpha. It wasn't an apology, wasn't friendship, but it was acknowledgement. The council remained hostile but distant. They couldn't move against Stonehaven without uniting all the packs, and most packs were too busy watching this new power rise to commit to war. Liora stood on the wall one evening, watching the sun set over her territory. Her pack. People who'd come from nothing and built something real. Kyle joined her, as he often did. The bond between them had grown stronger, deeper. Not just magical connection, but real partnership. Any regrets? He asked. About which part? All of it. Breaking the seal. Freeing me. Building this. Liora thought about it, about everything that had happened, the pain, the fear, the moment she'd wanted to give up. No, she said finally, I'm not who I was. Can't ever be that girl again. But I like who I'm becoming, someone who doesn't accept the world's verdict, someone who builds instead of breaks. You're more than that. You're proof that the old ways don't work, that judging people by bloodlines and purity is poison. He looked at her. You're the future, whether the packs like it or not. Heavy responsibility for someone who just wanted to survive. The best leaders never wanted the job. They took it because someone had to. Far below, children played in the square. Children of the rejected, growing up in a place that didn't care about bloodline purity or perfect transformations. Just about heart, about refusing to quit. Liora watched them and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not just survival, not just defiance, hope. Real hope that the world could change. That worth wasn't determined by who your parents were or whether you fit some perfect mold. That everyone deserved a chance to prove themselves. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not giving up on me. In the tomb. During the escape. When I was just a burden slowing you down. Hale smiled. You were never a burden. You were a catalyst. You just needed time to realize it. The sun set. Stars emerged. In the town below, fires lit against the darkness. Voices rose in song. Not the old pack songs, but new ones. Songs about outcasts and survival and refusing to disappear. Songs about a girl sent to die who became a queen instead. Liora closed her eyes and let the sounds wash over her. This was hers. Not given, not inherited. Built from nothing with people who understood rejection and chose community instead. Come on, Kyle said. Council meeting. We need to decide about the northern refugees. More coming? Always more. Word spreads. Safe harbor for the rejected. We're going to run out of space eventually. Then we expand. Build more. Accommodate everyone. Liora turned from the wall. No one gets turned away. Not while I'm Alpha. Even when it's hard? Especially when it's hard, that's the whole point. They walked back into the town together. Alpha and King. Rejected and royal. Two people who'd been thrown away and refused to stay buried. Behind them, the stars wheeled overhead. Indifferent. Eternal. But below, in the town built on stone and stubbornness, people lived and laughed and believed in tomorrow. And that was enough. That was everything. Liora Hale had been branded defective, sold, sacrificed, sent to die in darkness. Instead, she'd freed a king, broken a curse, built a pack from outcasts, and proved that worth wasn't determined by others' judgments. The girl they discarded became the Alpha they couldn't ignore, not through perfection, not through flawlessness, through sheer refusal to accept the world's verdict on her value. And in the end, that was the only power that mattered. The power to decide for yourself who you were, regardless of who they said you should be. The rejected had become the unconquerable, and the story was just beginning.